This is Strydent, and welcome to another episode of Off Our Brains. Today, I have a special guest with me, as you can tell. It's Souldrum 86, and we're finally sitting down and talking about movies. Now, the last thing I did about a movie was Carter. It had like no fucking views, no fucking, engagement. Please, I mean, I know there's like one or two people who actually request these things, but please hit the like and subscribe button, share it with people so that people know that I do this kind of thing, so that if you like this, it helps, let the algorithm know that I do this, and that way it's noticed by other people who like this sort of thing too. So, I recently picked up, I was at Target. I don't know, did I text you about this already or message you about it? Finding the Jim Ballant Catwoman at the DC.
Yeah.
I was surprised, man. It's a good figure. I mean, it feels like they just built on the other Catwoman that they did, the first one. But, the Arkham City one. But, it's a great figure. It almost makes me want to see what the, even though I hated the Batman, it makes me want to, check out that version of Catwoman and see if that figure is any good.
Oh, okay. Oh, the movie, The Batman.
Yeah,
dude. That
I hated that movie.
I got such a weird thing with that, man, because, like, not to get off into that after we talking about like some figures, but
you're good.
I remember, like, because I did the video me and ODC did. We were talking about that, and I was kind of high on the movie only because it exceeded expectations, because I wasn't even ready to see a new person play Batman. I just wasn't for it.
Yeah.
And when I saw it initially, I was like, okay, it's good, but it was long and it was boring.
Yep.
But it was like, it was better than what I thought it was going to be, so I was like, okay, I guess it's good.
Yeah.
And when I watched it on HBO Max, dude, I couldn't even finish it. I was like, nah, I don't feel the same way about this movie at all.
Yeah, it was one of those movies that definitely benefited from all the hype. The hype kind of pushed that movie to the forefront, and I'm like, dude, everything about this movie is lackluster. You literally took Blade's car, and then you put a fucking thruster on the back, and then called it a Batmobile. I'm like, no, you got to do more than that. Like, when you look at all the Batmobiles in history, they did way more than that. You can't do that. And people were arguing the point. I'm like, no, don't tell me it's his dad's car, because then that's another clue that people could use to tie, that it's one of the Waynes, you know what I mean, to be who's Batman. Yep. It's easy. The idea is everything's customized to the nth degree. I don't know. It felt like what they were doing in the early 2000s with James Bond. They kind of did it with Batman Begins, but Batman Begins was a little more creative than that.
Yes.
But, they were always trying to make everything more realistic, because it's cheaper to make those movies if all the elements actually exist in real life. So you don't have to make anything. Yep. You don't have to make anything from scratch. Everything already exists, So, I'm not about that. You either do it with the imagination and all the design work that needs to go into this stuff, or just don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, don't waste people's time and try to tell me that it's something else, and what I'm seeing doesn't really resemble what you're talking about. Like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because could you imagine if they had done that with Spider-Man? Like, that would have been terrible. Let's make a low budget, realistic and gritty Spider-Man where he's just fighting in his underwear or fighting in like sweatpants and shit the whole movie. Like, come on, man. Like, you can't do that with everybody. And it's weird.
No, you really, yeah.
No, go ahead. I'll say what I was going to say in a sec.
I'm saying, I agree, man. Like, me and my coworker were just talking about this when it comes to like movies and stuff. And I was like, everybody always kind of wants like this realism to everything. Literally almost everything that's created. They talk about something, it's like, oh, we're gonna make it gritty, put a real life thing to it. It's like, man, some things are meant to be like fantastical. Like,
exactly.
I like I like the ridiculous, man. It's like we get enough of our real world. It's escapism anyway. Like it
Exactly.
shouldn't be, you know what I mean? Like it's just it's ridiculous, man.
That's the word right there is escapism. People don't want to.
Yeah.
It's like people don't understand that that's an important part of the process. We got movies were created during the Great Depression, so the whole point of movies was for us to escape from the real life that we were living. That wasn't the best. So like,
Dude.
you know what I mean? Why would I want it to be more realistic? That makes no sense. I mean, you could have those movies, but like the whole thing shouldn't be all realism.
Right, right. And it's funny, dude, because like literally, like everything you just said, like me and my buddy was talking about this at work, like almost word for word what you just said he was talking about. That's kind of crazy, man.
Good man.
Yeah,
he must know his shit. He knows his shit about movies because man, most people don't even know that like movies were birthed during the Great Depression. They just think they just showed up, 500 years ago or some shit, and it's like nope.
Right.
It's a little bit over 100 years ago, and it came about during one of the lowest points in our country, and economically.
And then, you have the people on YouTube, the people that have a big voice, who kind of form their audience's opinion.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll have the thing of like, okay, Robin can't be in these movies because he's a kid and it's child abuse. I've heard that. I'm like, what? I'm like,
I know.
Wait,
but
what?
Hit Girl can show up and murder people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Damian Wayne can be their favorite Robin, but Tim and Dick can't show up, or Jason can't show up in one of these movies because child abuse. It's like, come on, it's a different world. It's supposed to be escapist. It's escapism. Like let us escape. Yeah. I hate it. It's people with little imagination trying to dictate how much imagination can go into these things, and that sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks.
Yeah.
It's like the people making these films, their job is to make us believe that this shit can be, like this can happen. It's not their job to create limitations all the time. It's their job to remove the limitations and let us believe that there could be a planet called Pandora with floating islands and blue cat people that look kind of like Africans and Native Americans and stuff combined. And you know what I'm saying? Like they have to make us believe that shit exists. That's the whole point. If they can't do it, then they shouldn't be getting paid the millions that they make every year to do this job. Give it to me.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
We grow up with this stuff. It's like I don't see where we get to a point where it's no longer cool.
Yeah.
If we grew up with all of this stuff that's like out of this world, like literally out of this world.
Yep.
Like obviously people like me, you, and our crew of people, like we obviously still buy figures. We are into the figures that we buy where like the love of the characters doesn't go away. So why would I want in 20 whatever for them to make a Superman where, Superman's not going to be as powerful. We're going to find, what I'm saying? I can see them doing that one day.
I know, right?
He's not going to have heat vision. We're going to tone that down because that's a little bit ridiculous. But, it's like, come on, man.
I know, right? It's like take all the fantastical elements away just for the sake of taking them away because the people working on the film don't have the imagination to figure out a way to make it look good. Like, it's terrible. Yeah. It's terrible. It's the problem that got the Game of Thrones guys fired from working on future Star Wars films. They admitted that the reason why dragons and shit didn't show up often and all the mythical stuff didn't show up often in Game of Thrones is because they didn't understand special effects enough to be able to somehow fix or fit them into scenes that they should have been in. So they just were like, let's take them out. And they admitted this during like it was like a Q&A session when they were hired to start working on Star Wars stuff. They start bragging about how they faked it till they made it. And the Disney guys were like, nah, because now we're gonna give you Star Wars shit where it's like 95% special effects and you don't understand how to do that. Like we're gonna pass on that. Like it's one of those things where if you're in this world, and I swear it always boggles my mind with our type of folks, like collect action figure quote unquote enthusiasts and collectors, because there's a big difference. Like the collectors, they just buy shit and put it on a shelf. The enthusiasts, they read the comics, all the media, they play the games, they know the characters. What seems to be, and they seem to be the minority in the group of pop culture enthusiasts. The minority of that group is the folks that actually really get who these characters are. You got a whole bunch of people who just, they want to be involved because it's popular. They don't really love it like we love it, you know? In one of my vlogs, I said there was a song. God, whose song was it? They said you ain't fucking it right. Like that was the you know the song. I just, man, but it's like you don't love it the way you need to love it. Like if you're spending thousands of dollars, you know, maybe hundreds of thousands a year, maybe. That's on the extreme end. In this merchandise of these characters that are supposed to have meaning, because essentially they're like 3D representation of these characters that we all, you know, those of us who were into comics before it was cool, before it was mainstream, we grew up on this shit, you know? So we love these characters. We understand who these characters are. We understand why they do what they do. So we never imagined that we would see fucking Thanos on the big screen, like in a movie, like a live action movie. We like, that was us imagining that shit when we were kids, that they could do it in a movie, but we didn't think they actually would do it. We would have been cool just seeing him in animation because, you know, it's Thanos and we know who he is, you know? Or people like the no one really digs the Eternals, but we never thought we would see the Eternals in a movie. Or like Doctor Strange. You know, like that, I've been a fan of the Midnight Suns since the 90s. And I never thought I would see that. I never thought I'd see Morbius as bad as the movie was, or Blade. Shit, I never thought I'd see Blade on screen. Blade was corny Blade was so corny, but like there was something cool about him. And somehow the people making those movies with Wesley Snipes just were like, yo, let's get rid of all the corny stuff and just make him all cool. And we got that movie, you know what I mean? And there's people who love this stuff that don't know that that's what started off the Marvel Renaissance. They think it's X-Men. And I'm like, how do you just miss Blade? I mean, he had 3 movies. One doesn't count, but he had 3 movies and a TV series that also kind of shouldn't count. But still, he was popular enough to get all that, you know. And you don't know that it's because of Blade that we're able to get the kind of, you know, superhero films that we get. Like, come on, man. Like, you don't love it the way you should. You need to know why this stuff works the way it works. And to hear them, you know, back to the point I jumped off of with my tangent, to hear those people who this is their wheelhouse say that, you know, oh, Cyclops shooting giant optic blasts that's too ridiculous. What? Yeah. What? Yeah. What? Or to see, you know, my complaint about Infinity War was that Thanos wasn't very creative with his use of the Infinity Stones. I wanted battles where, you know, when he uses reality, he is actually warping reality, not just making illusions and shit. And and I'm like, yo, he, you know, even in the video game, he's pretty creative with what he does. I mean, in terms of fighting games, and like in the movie, he just kind of, I mean, he hit everything. Like he just was hitting everything. Everything was, you know, he hit or he overpowered everything. And I was like, you could go further. And people told me it'd be ridiculous. I'm like, what do you mean? It's not already ridiculous that a purple alien with a butt chin, you know, with a giant butt chin with stones that do shit is, you know?
And that's the biggest thing, because it's like, okay, we're already in the realm of.
Yeah.
I'm like, why not just go all the way there? They even go to the point where, and I'll hear people that claim to like the stuff that we like, they'll say, oh, I don't know if he'll be able to have this costume because it'll look stupid. I remember before, what is it? What was the Spider-Man with Mysterio called? Far From Home?
Yeah, Far From Home. Yep.
Yeah, Far From Home. I remember for a while people were saying, oh, they're probably not gonna have Mysterio with his helmet or whatever on, and I'm like, why? Like, what makes that stupid? Because one of the things that I get irritated with like comic book TV shows is you got the hero in their costume, but whenever a villain comes on there, you have to hear their name before you know who it is. I'm like, how come they can't get their costume? You can't figure out a way for them to look like their comic book counterpart.
Exactly.
Like, they look stupid. They get their street clothes.
Exactly. We're like the same color top that the costume is supposed to have, or the jacket will be the right color or something. Like, man, get out of here. That's I'm with you on that. It's garbage. They used to do it with Smallville. That's why I couldn't get into Smallville. Besides the fact that they tried to take everything that ever happened to Superman and make it happen to him before he finished college or high school. I was like, nah, man, nah. So I couldn't watch the show because it was just insulting my intelligence. I was like, you can't do that. And there's a lot of people who argue in favor of it. And I'm like, so what would he do when he becomes Superman? Who would he fight if he fought them all when he was a kid?
If he fought them all now, right. And another thing, too, just kind of in the topic of Superman and characters like Superman in terms of like his personality.
Yeah.
I also hate that we now get things where they don't have the same characteristics. Like, God forbid, a character that is truth, justice, in the American way, he be presented that way.
Exactly.
You gotta be edgy. Everybody, and it kind of reminds me of wrestling. I'm gonna tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Stone Cold told a story before where he was supposed to be a heel.
Yeah.
Like when they came up with the Stone Cold gimmick, he was supposed to be a heel, but he ended up everybody started liking him.
Yep.
So they went with it. And you since then, even if you like look at wrestling now, not like watch it, but just look at the people who are the quote unquote baby faces.
Yeah.
They all have an edge to them.
Exactly.
It's like, why? The shit worked before. The people that were good guys before wrestling, everybody was able to get behind.
Yeah.
That shit doesn't go away. And I think, and this is another conversation I had with my buddy at work, I was like, for the type of world that we're living in, I feel like it's important to have characters portrayed that way because everybody gets influenced by something. Yep. So why not have people, especially young minds, getting influenced by people who are actually about doing the right thing at all costs? Like how Chris Evans played Captain America.
Yep.
Like, I thought that was like perfect.
It was perfect. That
was perfect, man.
It's perfect. You're right. I've talked about this too because I'm a Superman fan through and through. Because if we don't have Superman, we don't have shit. We don't have the rest of them.
Right.
And I'm like, for people to be like, he should be tougher in real life. He would act like, notice like the image of Superman that you see now is Superman dimly lit with his red eyes glowing in the darkness. And I'm like, that's a Batman image. Not with the red eyes. It should be white eyes or something. But like, Batman is the guy who's dimly lit, whose eyes, he's like intimidatingly staring down the enemy. Superman's the guy who shows up and everybody's like, this motherfucker? And then he moves a fucking continent and you're like, fuck. How am I gonna? And then he takes you to jail and tells you next time. I hope that this is an example of why you should always do good. And I believe in second chances. So, when I see you next time, I hope you clean up your act. And everybody's like, "Are you serious? This guy just he just like gave me a stern talking to after he beat my ass like with no effort, and then flew me to jail."
And I think, and to go along with that point, what was it? I was reading a while ago. I think it's the Superman Earth one that kind of like off-brand like one or whatever.
Yeah,
one of the things that was cool in that was when he was talking to his mom, he had one of the masks, and she said, "No, when people see the things that you can do, they're gonna be scared, so they have to see your face to see like your smile, to see like, you know what I'm saying, like that you mean them no harm. It's gonna help with the whole thing." So it's like, it's weird to see Superman with like he's always looking like a badass. Like, you know what I mean? It's like he doesn't have. He's got to have that like that smile, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
he's got to put you at ease. He's got to seem like he's a dad. He's everybody's dad, like a surrogate dad.
Yeah.
He's the guy who. And I've said this before. The villain is wrecking havoc. Everybody's like, "Holy shit!" What do we do? We're running. We're trying to figure something out. Kids crying and everything. Superman shows up, consoles the kids, and then turns around and whoops that villain's ass and saves everybody. That's what he does, because that way when you see him, you are at ease. You're like, this guy legit gives a shit about us. That's the character. Everyone can't be. It's like what Syndrome said in The Incredibles. If everyone's super, then no one is super. We used to say this in my comic book drawing classes in college. They would say, if every angle in the comic is extreme, because you had artists that their thing was drawing everything from these crazy fish-eyed angles and like extreme foreshortening and shit like that, and it looked good, but like a conversation doesn't need that level of intensity. And if you do that for every panel, it's like overkill. You will be tired and none of it's gonna have the impact. So like if everybody is an edgelord, nobody's really an edgelord, because what are they edgy in comparison to? Nothing, because everything in the book is edgy. So it's like there's no variety, and people don't understand nuance, and they don't understand that there are different temperaments and different personalities and archetypes in comics, and all of them are valid. You know, they all play different parts. And right now, where we have lots of people who don't stand for shit, there have to be examples. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like, our generation had a lot of people who stood for something. And you look at the current stuff, and it's a lot of people who just, whatever makes them money, that's all they give a shit about. I mean, you have that across all of the generations, but like, it's at a high now. Clout and money is all people are looking for, to the point where they do the dumbest shit that you can imagine, because no one is giving them an example of the right way to be. Like, when we were kids, we wanted to be adults. Now you got kids who want to be other kids who are on YouTube. It's like, what's going on? Like, what you wanted to be an adult because adults looked like they did. You saw them do things that were better. Adults were the firefighters. Adults were, you know, the I don't know, in the military, they were the cops back when the cops weren't as bad as they are now. They were, you know, the teachers and the scientists and all that shit. And we like, yo, I want to be like that when I grow up. Now, I mean, you don't hardly see that. At least you definitely don't see it in the media. Not as much as we used to. So you need those, like, examples.
Cause like, and that's why, like, for like several months ago, I was talking with my buddies, and I was like, I'm just getting sick of like entertainment. I was like, everything on TV and movies, I was like, barely anything has a character you can get behind. Me and my wife will watch shows that, like, to their own credit, like, they're good, like, they're watchable. But I'm like, we were watching a show one time, and I was like, I paused it, because we do that with each other. Like, we'll pause to, like, you know, have some input on what's going on.
That's what we do.
And I paused it, and I'm thinking, like, I'm almost getting sick of this show, because there's nobody on here who's representing anything good. And even when they are sort of representing something good, there's some bad with them too. And around that time, we luckily found a show, Abbott Elementary. And why I got geeked about that show was the main character, that the girl that created the show, how she was all about the kids. And every episode, it was her trying to do the right thing by the kids, and her trying to get the city to get stuff like supplies that they need. And it was like, okay, here we go. We got something where we have like the character that's trying to do right, like by any means, even to their own fault. They're trying to do the right thing. And you know, she ain't got to have no messed up past where it's like she's doing something good, but then, hey, behind closed doors, she's got like this heavy drug addiction, or she's like lying to people and doing all of this scammy stuff. But you know, what I mean? Like, they always, it's like, it gets tiring. It's like there's a place for that. I think that there's room for that in the sphere of things. But when you start making everything the same, it just starts to get watered down. It's like, I get nervous when they're about to make a comic book movie now, because I'm like, okay, what are they going to do with this character? Like, what's like, I mean, this is like a small little thing, but like Falcon in the movies. Like, I like Anthony Mackie as Falcon. But they took away his whole powers with the communicating with birds and whatnot. Like why? Like, that would, to me, because he plays the role so well, that would have been a cool element to add, instead of making Red Wing an actual like machine like
a drone
thing that can shoot. Yeah, like a drone. Like I'm like, why would you take that away?
Because somebody in the office was like, yeah, that'd be ridiculous if he talked to birds. It's not ridiculous that there's a dude literally from Asgard fighting alongside these cats, but it's ridiculous that a black man could talk to a bird. Like, yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. It's like you got uncreative ass individuals working on some of the most creative shit, which they gotta fix it. They gotta fix that. It makes no sense. They really gotta change it. Yeah, I'm with you. Like I hate a couple things with these, and it's weird because all of this and the point that you made about the YouTube voice, the loud voices on YouTube that don't know the difference between the writer and the director, the guys who don't know that, you know, the Batman was not as, you know, imaginative as you think it is. You know what I mean? The guys who, they don't know Batman's story. They don't know the difference between pre-crisis Batman and post-crisis Batman. Like, they're loud as fuck and everybody repeats what they say and it dumbs down the discourse. So like, that's a problem I have, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about with a bunch of movies, because this plagued Doctor Strange 2. This plagued the recent Ant-Man movie, because you hear all this shit talk about the movie, and it's not bad. It's like, I heard people say the special effects were terrible. I'm like, how do you figure? I know Marvel has problems, but like, their special effects in some of the movies have been really good. And if you go back and watch the Ant-Man movies, that's not one of the ones that suffers from bad effects. Their effects had to be good because you're shrinking things down and you're making things grow while things are going on, and like it's so much reliance on special effects to get those powers across, and they did it better than you could have really asked for. Like, those movies are actually not bad. And it's weird too, like, at work, we were talking about the worst and the best trilogies in the MCU. Iron Man has the worst trilogy by far. Next, it's him, and then maybe Thor. But Cap,
they got worse as they
they just kept getting bad. Yeah, as each one went on, they got worse. Because the first one of all of Thor and the first Iron Man were pretty good. I mean, like, I wanted. Like, the first Thor was super, like, Shakespearean. It seemed serious as hell, and, like, you were like, damn, okay. Then the second one was like, eh. Then the third one was amazing. You're like, oh my god, the third one's amazing. Then the fourth one was like, eh. Then with Iron Man, with Iron Man, it was the same thing. The first one was like, damn, okay, somebody really likes Iron Man. This is awesome. Then the second one, it had highs and lows, but overall it was kind of just meh. Then the third one was like, what the fuck is this? It's funny, but it shouldn't be funny because it's Iron Man. Like, it's supposed to be kind of serious. Like, it's got this Austin Powers kind of vibe to it, and you're like, what? Like, why? Anyway, okay. And then the third, that's it. You know what I mean? And you're like, why didn't they adapt Armor Wars? I know they're doing it now as a movie or something else, but it's like, that was early in Iron Man's story. Like, adapt Armor Wars, the easiest, most logical story for you to turn into a movie, because his whole shtick was dealing with his weapons, getting them off the street. Like, he wanted his weapons out of the game because he was like, he saw firsthand what his own shit was doing to people. So now, if they got his suits too, oh my god, like, why did it take over 10 years for them to be like, yo, we should make this into a movie? It doesn't make sense. But anyway, you go to Captain America, and his trilogy makes sense. Like, each movie, the threats were logical, and the escalation made sense, and you're like, damn. And Cap himself grew as a character. He didn't change, like, his core being didn't change, but he grew because he understands more of the world that he's now a part of. And it's like, that's what you want. That shows that the writers actually understand the core characters, and they are building on the core elements that make those characters interesting in the first place. But on YouTube, everybody dick rides Tony Stark. It's like, oh, Tony Stark, mwah, 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 all day long. Tony Stark. both hands, you know, cupping the balls, the whole nine, and you're like, for real? You didn't actually watch the movie and see that like he's the problem in a lot of these films. Like he admits himself
Dude,
that he screwed it up.
you have no, bro. I've been saying the same thing. Like around the time that movie came out, I was even debating one of my best friends about that. I'm like, dude, like, no, I was literally saying everything you were like, everything that you just said. I'm like, yo, man,
It cracks me up. It cracks me up, man. People, when we were talking about Civil War. No, not Civil War. No, yeah, it was Civil War. We were talking about how the two ideologies that were being presented. You know, it was like you give up your like personal freedom so that you can have safety. That's what Cap wanted. I mean, that's what Iron Man wanted. Cap was like, no, we have personal responsibility because we have the power to do something about these problems. So we can't give up our autonomy in order to become a weapon for someone else who might not be the most morally just person. And I was like, I said it to them just like that, and I was like, you don't see which one of these. The movie presents it so that you can see both sides, but then they show you ultimately the fallout of following Tony's way, which is always the wrong way. So like, I'm like, how do you? And they were like, nah, Iron Man, man, Iron Man's better. Iron Man makes more sense. Iron Man. I'm like, how?
Yeah, dude, because there were so many like YouTube videos around. Everybody was like, I could see like Iron Man. So and like you just said, I'm like, but how? I'm like, that makes no sense at all.
It makes no sense.
To me, it just didn't make any sense. Now, if they had if it was two different like arguments going on, but man, nah, like.
Yeah, I mean, like it's plain as day. Even the writers of the film are trying to show you that like the way Tony Stark is riddled with guilt. Every time he shows up in a movie, somebody reminds him that he fucked up. And then he's like, shit, I fucked up. And the whole movie is about him trying to fix the fact that he fucked up. He doesn't do it because he's altruistic. He does it because someone reminded him that he fucked up. He's always selfish. Cap does it because it's the right thing to do. And he always does it because it's the right thing to do because this is his innate character. He's old school values that don't even exist right now. And people are like, Iron Man, Iron Man, Iron Man. And I'm like, so you're telling me that a Marvel movie is smarter than you are? Like, the average person is that, like, slow or that, like, morally ambiguous or morally unjust that they don't understand the difference between, like, what is it, a moral or what do they call that? A philosophical fallacy versus, like, you know, a moral absolute? Like, what?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Oof. Can I tell you something funny?
What's up?
Like, so my mom loves Iron Man. She loves Robert Downey Jr. She loved him in that role. She was in the theater crying when he died in Endgame.
Yeah.
However, even when Civil War came out, my mom even knew that Cap side was the better side to go with.
Yeah, like, it made sense.
And that wasn't even me talking to her. That was just, and she loves Iron Man. Like, that's what got her into even watching the Marvel like movies.
That's cool.
Because it shocked us. Because my mom is very like, she does not like to. She's starting to like lately. She's been starting to watch a lot of like current stuff. But she's like, listen, if it's I Love Lucy, she'll watch that and old movies, old James Bond movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, she really wasn't like into watching this stuff. But yeah, when she's seen Iron Man, she loves it. But she even knew like what made more sense. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, it applies to the world we live in now. If like when you go online, a lot of times to use apps and services and whatnot, they require you to give up some of your personal like privacy in order for you to utilize whatever the service is. And a lot of times you don't have a choice. I mean, like there's ways, in some cases there's ways around it on the back end where you can, if you know enough, you can go in and disable things so that even if you say, here, go ahead and get this information, you can disable that information from being shared from your side. So, you know, there's things you can do, but it's not a 100% type deal. You can't do it everywhere. But like, there's things that they say are for our safety. but like you don't actually get the benefits of those things. You know what I mean? Like you don't see the benefits of those things. And then meanwhile, all of the benefits is going to these companies. They're getting your data because your information is it's a currency now. So like
yeah, that's what you pay. That's what you pay with.
Exactly.
Anything that they say is like it's free, but it's really not free.
Yeah, exactly. And people are just like, yep, I don't care. And I mean, maybe that's why people miss the point. You know what I mean? Like it's a subtle.
Yeah.
It's a. I don't even think it's subtle, but it could be. I guess it's too subtle for the masses. They don't get that this is a commentary on the current world that you live in. Because I mean, there's a lot of shit that's the way it works. You know, you give up something, someone else is benefiting from what you gave up, and you didn't even realize that you gave it up, or you didn't realize how important it is for you to still have control over this thing. You just wanted that face app, you just wanted that, you know, whatever the thing was. I mean, it's like when you look at current video games versus old video games. How are you going to make a fighting game where you have to buy all the fighters separately? It's a fighting game. How can I judge the fighting game if all the characters aren't in it when I buy it? Also, how can you charge me full price for the fighting game and then turn around and have me buy all the fighters? Like, what did I pay full price for? And that's the norm now. You know, games ship unfinished. You know that when we were kids, we would have never believed this was possible. Never. Never. Back in the day, you bought a game, and like Tekken had time-released characters, where if you play the game for so long, you beat the game so many times, over time, characters will start being released. That was cool, because we had to work towards it. Secret characters, you know, characters that you unlock when you beat the game in certain conditions and stuff like that. Like, that made it feel like I was getting something for my money. You know, I was getting more because I put in more.
Yeah. It would be like, you know, beat the game on very hard, you unlock this. Beat this character without getting touched, and then you get this, and because you know what it is too. That whole like, you know, we're gonna patch things in. It's like, and I saw somebody say this, and I'm blanking on who I just saw say this, but they were talking about the fact that it was a Ninth Wonder interview.
Okay,
he was talking about how like the more things like when technology advances, it actually makes people like less creative and a little more lazy.
Yep. It's true. It's true.
That's pretty much that, because once companies were like, oh, we can fix this post-launch, well, shoot, let's get it in good enough working condition and then release it, and then you got this day one patch that you're waiting hours for it to, you know, install.
Yep.
And then it's like sometimes you got to play the game for a couple weeks with a buggy, serious game-breaking issue where you probably will put the controller down until they patch it. It's
exactly.
Like, come on, man.
Exactly. And then pre-order culture, where you're buying shit before you even saw the quality of the thing you bought. And now everything, back in the day, it was only things that we knew were going to sell out. Like, I remember the first thing I ever pre-ordered was Mortal Kombat on the Genesis. Because everybody knew Mortal Kombat was going to sell out immediately because it was so popular, and it did. Then the next thing I pre-ordered was Super Street Fighter on the Genesis as well, back in the early 90s. And besides that, we didn't pre-order everything. You could prepay for the copy so that you could just come in and pick it up, but like you didn't have to do that to guarantee your copy unless it was something that was guaranteed to sell out. I think something else was the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast was almost guaranteed, and it did sell out. I was working at Electronics Boutique when it was September 9th, 1999. I was still working. I was coming home from college, and I was still working at EB, and it sold out. It sold out in the pre-order phase, and then when people came to get their copies, we got a small shipment of more, like extra. Those sold out within like an hour or two of opening the store, because we went through everything, because we pretty much could only sell what we had, like the stuff that wasn't pre-ordered. So that palette of Dreamcast were gone in like an hour, because it was the new hot shit, and like that's how it works. Now there's things that are in pre-order, you're pre-ordering it and nobody knows it exists. You know, like there's a handful of people that are big into it, but it's not big enough. Like Fresh Monkey Fiction. You telling me that many people know who Fresh Monkey Fiction is so that they can buy Eagle Force? Eagle Force wasn't even that popular in the 80s. Those die-cast metal, you know, soldiers. I remember because my dad was cheap when it came to toys and stuff. So he would come back with these weird-looking metal soldiers with gold costumes on. Yeah. And we're like, who are these guys? And they're smaller than G.I. Joes, and like they didn't hold their weapons well, and sometimes they would shatter in the package because the die-cast wasn't sealed properly. So, I remember them from back in the day, but you mean to tell me that their sales would rival G.I. Joe sales to the point where you need to pre-order them? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. Right. And there's so many other figures that have done that, and video games and movies, and every service is a pre-order service. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Or like digital copies. Go ahead. I'll tell you afterwards.
No, because I was just gonna say, like, going on, like, and we used to get demos for like everything.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Demos still come out for like the indie games.
Yeah.
But companies before, it was like, yo, you picked up a Game Informer or whatever, and you could play a demo to like almost every game that was getting ready to come out.
Yeah, some of those magazines. I remember PSN magazine and or PSM, I think it was, PlayStation Monthly. They used to have like a disc that would have like 10 or 15 demos on it.
Yep.
So did Xbox magazine, and then Game Fan was my favorite. And every now and then, when they were really hyped about something, they would have a bunch of demos for stuff. I still have the demo for Nightmare Creatures 3, which never ever got released. The company essentially moved to new shit. Nightmare Creatures was my shit back in the day, man. Such an underrated gem. And they started making the third game but never finished it because Ravensoft, I think, was the company. They ended up becoming, some of their people got folded into other companies, and then they started working on stuff like Call of Duty and other things like that. But you're right. We used to get demos. We used to get a lot more, and it made sense given what we were paying for. Now you pay way more and you get way less, and people don't really say anything about it, which is strange because they complain about a lot of stuff, but they don't seem to complain about the things that matter, you know. And we have so many ways to do it too, you know, like so many channels to be heard, and they just don't.
I feel like, man, when I'll comment on certain videos and I'll look and I'll be like, man, am I the only one that sees an issue with this? Like, like when these big companies do these crowd funds, man. I just talked about this in my last video. I don't like when like Mattel and Hasbro do these big crowd funds, because a lot of the times, and it feels like a lot of customers don't realize they're getting played.
Yep.
So like Mattel, for example, they did the new generation ring last year.
Yeah.
Right after that ring was released, and they wanted you to pay $250 for that. And I get you got 2 figures or 3 figures if you pre-ordered early enough. If not, you only got the 2 figures and like the entrance.
Weren't some people
not even stage?
Weren't some people not getting them?
Way.
Some people weren't getting all that.
Some people weren't getting the Macho Man. Some people, like this dude, had to fight tooth and nail to get Mattel to finally send him, because they were acting like they couldn't do it. I'm like, dude, you're the source. You make the figure.
Exactly.
Exactly. That don't make any sense. but it's like after the ring releases, dude, I kid you not, it was like within a month or two, they then announced the Raw is War Attitude Era ring. That's the same ring, but it's just made up is the Raw is War one. It came with Kane, and it was $140, which actually makes sense because rings are typically, when they release a wrestling ring, it's $100, and the Ultimate figures go for, like on Ringside Collectibles, they go for almost $40, and when you get them at Target, they're like $32.99.
Yeah.
So they figured in that pricing with that. So what was like $250? I would be pissed if I would have backed that ring for $250, and then shortly after that announces they released the same ring for cheaper.
But
I'm like, dude,
why wouldn't they though? If people are gonna jump on it, you know what I mean? It's weird because you know, like I was telling when McFarlane announced the Batmobile and the Batwing and all that stuff for the new movie, I was like, don't get it I was like, that's a ripoff. $250 for a big half circle that's shaped like a bat that you only put. It doesn't have lights, sounds, nothing. It's literally just $250 because it's big. I was like, wait, someone else will do it, and it'll be $40. Watch. The next week, someone was like, Spin Master did one that's just a little bit smaller, $40, and it fits a 12-inch figure in it. I was like, do you see what I'm talking about? I was like, if the Batmobile is 60, why would the Batwing be 250? There's a huge jump. And Anthony was ready, and I was like, brother, no. I was like, don't do it. Listen, I was like, I make figures now, and I know what it costs to make the mold for that thing, and that's where all the money went. They own their molds. They're working with factories that probably already worked with Mattel. They have they have hookups. Everything's subsidized. They're not paying what me and Invincible Toys and us are all paying for our stuff. So I was like, don't fall into the trap. Wait for someone else to make a cheaper one, $40, and it's there. But what pissed me off was that both sold out. Like the $250 Batwing sold out in minutes, and then the fucking Spin Master one sold out in minutes once somebody made a video about it. And I'm just like, God, can we get anything in like realistic numbers? Like, can they please make realistic numbers of stuff? Because it's ridiculous that we always, if it's popular, it's going to sell out. And if it's Batman, it's definitely going to sell out.
Because I remember you said before, I mean, it was probably in a video, or it may have just been when we, like me and you messaging each other, but like, you want to get an opportunity to get this stuff, man. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Because like now, I think it was when we were messaging, because now we got to wait to see if we see it in Target when that time comes. And Target's only going to have like maybe 2 at a time on a shelf, because I got the 1960s Batmobile from Target, and every time I would go to get one, it was like only 1 or 2 left.
Same.
With that Batmobile, that dope, as dope as it looks, like, man, that might be hard to get.
Yeah.
That's gonna be hard to get, man.
Yeah, and you got all those sites where people are getting the DCPI codes, and like they're getting heads up on when the shipments show up and all. Yeah, it's become really weird that like it's only a handful of places you can physically go to buy figures, and you have to go through all this rigmarole because of the super heavy competition. You know, a bunch of scalpers that use bots and all kinds of other things, they're the ones buying up all the stock, and then they turn around and resell it for like 3 times what it cost or 2 times what it cost. Like, did you see that the Batmobile and the Batwing, after they sold out within a couple minutes of the reveal, a day or 2 later, they all showed up on Amazon and eBay.
Yep, for like 120.
For like 100 something. Yep. I was like, what? I get it that the companies want to make money, so they don't put any restrictions on people buying stuff. But like, how many companies are going to do this? Where essentially you feed the scalper. You know what I mean? Yeah. You get your bottom line, but then the scalper gets the bottom line and then some. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, no one does anything. It's like literally the economy for a lot of action figures is based on scalpers, and it or flippers, as Mad Hatter likes to call them. It's just
and they do it with new figures. Like, normally, like before in the past, it used to be like if something was rare and if it was like a classic thing. Now it's figures that just come out.
Yep.
And they might be exclusive to a certain store. It's like, bro, I can get this if I walk over to Target right now. Yeah. Why are you selling it for $80?
Yeah. Like the
what are you doing?
I remember before I got the Hush, because ODC hooked me up with the Hush Superman, the one that was under Ivy's control, and then I did the head swap thing, and then it was funny because the week after he hooked me up with that figure, then McFarlane announced the regular Hush Superman that's not possessed by Ivy. You know what I'm talking about? I was like, are you serious? I could have just waited. But I was looking for that figure for a while because I never saw it in the store. Normally I see the what do they call gold label figures? They'll usually be in the NECA section or like near the NECA stuff, whereas everything else will be with the regular toy aisle. And I didn't see that figure. It's one of the only gold label figures I never saw in the store ever, which means people were on top of it as soon as it was released.
Yeah, and then, I never saw that, man.
Yeah, when I saw it online, it was like $50, $80, $100, and I'm like, it just dropped. Like, it dropped within like a month or two of me looking for this. Why is the price so high up there? So, you know, I just was like, I've resigned myself to like, I'm just gonna be, you know, missing out on this figure because I'm not spending that. There's no way.
And that's how I do now too, man. Because it's like, as much as I love this hobby, I'm not about to stress about looking for a figure. Like, look, I used to watch people's like toy hunt videos. It's cool. I'm not going toy hunting, bro. Like where I live, where me and my wife live, we're literally 5 minutes, if that. Like, driving wise, we can probably get there in 2 minutes of a Target. But we can't see Target. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like around a couple blocks.
Yeah.
And then opposite direction, we're right by a Walmart.
Yep.
I'm sorry, man. I am not unless I'm in the area. You ain't gonna catch me going to all of these different Walmarts around Ohio. Like, no, dude. It's not that deep, man. Like, I'll go after work because it's on my way home.
Exactly.
I'm like, if it ain't at Target, cool. Yeah. And a lot of the times I even skip Walmart because Walmart is actually going out of my way the opposite direction. I'm like passing my place at that point. I'm like, nah, if I'm at Walmart, I'll look to see if it's there, but I'm not about dude.
Yeah, we're I mean, unfortunately it's strange because it's like we're grown. We got adult shit to do. We do also collect. But what's funny is that the consensus online is it's like your toys before everything else, and it's like, man, I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I got a mortgage, I got you got car notes, we got all this other stuff. I don't sell drugs, so I don't have like limitless fucking, you know, disposable income. I like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing my regular adult duties as well as being a collector, and that's my hobby. Hobby is on the side. The other stuff is my full-time, what I do all the time. And all you ever hear, and this is part of why I get why I don't have like millions of subscribers, because this is how I've always talked to people. That's why when Kappa happened, I was like, I don't really have to change shit, because like I curse up a storm on my videos, and like I'm talking to adults like we're adults shooting the shit, you know? All we need is a beer and to be up in the man cave physically, and we'd be doing this in real life, you know?
Yes.
So I'm like, I'm not trying to baby you, and you're not gonna see my face in a picture with my mouth wide open, holding a toy next to my head. Like, no, yo, I'm 6 years away from being 50. Are you fucking kidding me? There is no way. There is no fucking way that I'm gonna do that shit. You know what I mean? Like, if I was spoofing something, maybe, but like, these motherfuckers do that shit every single video, and then they talk like they have no other responsibilities, and I'm just like, nah, man. I'm also trying to teach my kids. Well, I have one kid in the house right now, so I'm trying to teach the one kid, the youngest, the value of his money when he gets money, so he doesn't just waste it all the time. So that way, when he hits his teens, he's not like, yo, I'm just gonna splurge every time I want something, you know? Like right now it's simple stuff like V-Bucks in fucking Fortnite, but like, you know, I'm like, yo, if you have a certain amount of money, this is what it costs, and you want to make that money go as far as you can take it, then you probably might need to hold off on some of these things, these impulses, you know, like slow down. I remember one time we went to, I told him to save his money, birthday money, and then we went to Dollar General when we found Final Faction. We bought the whole wave, duplicates of some of the enemies, so he had like several aliens for them to fight, and he was like, all this only costs $10? I was like, yeah. You still got 10 or $15 more. You can get some candy if you want to. You can even get a couple more things if you want to. You just can't spend everything all the time, all at once. But it doesn't feel like we get that from the adults that are pushing, you know, our hobby. It's always like, just buy up, buy, consume.
And exactly, dude, what you just said, because I was just about to say that. That's my problem with a lot of the big YouTubers on, in this collecting sphere. Like, I'm like, why are you telling? Like, okay, this is ridiculous. You'll love this. So, several WWE like figure collectors, big figure collectors, were literally telling their subscribers, "Yo, even if you don't like this ring, or if you're just kind of iffy about it, back it so we get more and better stuff in the future from Mattel with their crowd funds." I'm like, what kind of logic is that? What kind of logic is this is all right? And let me just drop $250 on it, so maybe in the future they'll charge more for the thing that I really want. That don't even make any sense, man. I'm like, you gotta be out your mind, bro.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they don't realize that a lot of their subscribers are kids.
Exactly.
So you having the kids be like, "Yo, mom, dad, I know this is $250, but like, nah, that's ridiculous, dude. Like, come on, man."
Oh my God. Yeah, it's true. It's true. They don't think about it. It's just, and it makes you, it kind of, if you're paying attention, it shows you that they are actually, or more than likely, they have an agreement with these companies because they push the product above all else as if it's their job. Me and Zorpox call them employees because they act like employees of the company, and this is part of their metrics.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's hard to listen. Like, for me, there was a point where I just couldn't listen to that shit. Like, when they would tell you that Hasbro is the top action figure company of all the... They're not even the top toy manufacturer in the world. And, like, people will... They make up stuff, and I'm like, you can go and look this shit up. It's Lego first. It's Namco, Bandai Namco second. Fisher-Price is third. Barbie, the brand, is fourth. Nerf is fifth. Dragon Ball is sixth, and then Hasbro comes. So, like, when we're talking about what's, like, the shit, you know, like, stop pushing Hasbro up like they do they do the same thing, the same exact formula for every line that's aimed at boys or collectors. It's exactly the same shit because their people don't have imagination. They do the same shit. Like, there's an Indiana Jones line that they're doing exactly the same way that they do Legends, exactly the way they did Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
It's the same shit. Except the figures, there's an indie that comes with a monkey that costs $33 in a windowless package, hardly any accessories. I was like, are you kidding me? 33 something? That's the MSRP for this figure? Like, are you kidding me? And there's people telling you that you should get it. I'm like, wow. But when you listen to the fan base and you listen to the dumb shit they say, the leaps in logic and stuff, I can't. And then I realize this is why when I talk, only a certain number of people listen. And, you know, when the others talk and they say, hey, consume, buy, consume, and then get excited for more shit to consume, they have all the subscribers. It's easier for you to hear that than it is for you to hear, wait, or don't pay all that. Wait till it goes on clearance. You know what I mean? Or something else. And that's just the way it is. It's kind of like what you see in the what do they call it? The manosphere. Where they tell you, like, with the stuff that's geared towards women, it's always like products, buy, this will make you be like this, and then you'll be like this. And the women women are the number one purchasers of anything and everything, expenses in your household in America, period. And then single women push that up even further. So yeah, if you're single and you keep showing your new product and we know you're already primed to buy it, why would we want to push you being in a relationship when marketing can just be like, you're perfect how you are, but if you get these products, you'll be even more perfect, you know, just you, separate by yourself, as long as you keep buying this shit. Like, no one's seeing it. And it's funny when you listen to people point it out and the women fight you on it. It's like, okay, it's easier for you to hear that than it is for someone to point out what the reason is for why you're hearing this. And it just is one of those things. And I'm starting to, like, in recent years, that's why I'm not stressing myself like I used to about putting out content all the time. Before, it was like I was competing with other YouTubers to try to, keep a schedule and keep it going. And man, the people listening to me don't even. Nah, I'm one of many things they're probably listening to. They're not exclusively listening to what I'm saying, So like I put out something as an alternative to what you normally hear, because you gotta wash your ears with something else every now and then. You can't only be listening to this fucking weird mind priming bullshit where they're just like consume. It's like they live. Consume, reproduce, consume, obey. It's like it's got to be something else, But so let's jump into the point you made about movies, because that was a thing that I really want to talk about, and YouTube. So you saw one thing people kept saying when Wakanda Forever came out. Actually, leading up to it coming out, you saw Wakanda Forever, right?
Yeah.
So they said that it's the one. What they say, feminization of male heroes, and I was like, I was saying to myself, like, of all the films, I don't think that applies as much to Wakanda Forever, because Wakanda Forever, Black Panther in general, always had the quote unquote strong female characters right alongside with the strong male characters, because the society that they're showing you is strong as fuck. They're unified and it's strong. You have a king, you have a queen, you know what I mean? You have a prince, you have a princess. You have your army, but you also have the Dora Milaje. Or what's the other guys called? The ones that wear white, the something Saraze. You know what I'm talking about? The special forces guys. The Hatsuit Zaraze, I think is what they're called. They you have, badass women and you have badass men. That's always been Wakanda. So hearing quote unquote fans mentioning that somehow Black Panther is getting feminized, what do you think about that?
It's I don't look at it that way, in terms of, I didn't see it like that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think that they were feminizing any of the male characters.
Exactly.
It was a female-led movie, but for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if Black Panther was in it and he was getting shoved to the side, then that argument would make sense.
Yep.
But the fact that he wasn't in it, it's like, okay, now what that sounds like to me is that, like, they're hearing certain people say it, and then it's like, and then like they hear the other person say it, and so they start saying it, and then it's just that, it's just that, let me repeat what I heard because it sounds good. Because even when people are saying things that don't make sense, if they know how to talk, they can make it sound good. It's the same thing. I mean, they do the same thing on ESPN. They sound like idiots when they talk about. Like, seriously, it sounds. But when so many people are listening to them, like, and you can tell, and even with the stuff we're talking about with movies, if you put a comment down and, like, just wait for the reply, like, if you get a reply, you'll know exactly who they listen to by the reply that they give you.
Oh yeah,
because it'll be almost word for word
talking points.
It will be almost word for word, all of the bullet points, and it's like, I don't even bother responding, because I'm like, I know exactly who you listen to. That's where you got that from.
Yep.
Like, how do you really feel about it, bro? Like, just because your favorite YouTuber said this, and then all this ridiculous stuff, like, don't mean that it's the gospel.
Exactly.
Don't mean that it's the gospel, man.
Exactly. A good example with that, and we can go back to movies, comic book movies, of course, is how in the late 90s, early 2000s, the hatred for Cyclops all of a sudden became a thing. Brian Singer makes a joke at Cyclops' expense because he's in love with, Brian Singer's team and them. Brian Singer was in love with Hugh Jackman. You just know he was. And so he put him in the forefront and told his team, don't read the comics. Because if they did, they'd be like, yo, why are you writing Wolverine in Cyclops' role and then you're writing Cyclops to the side? What's the point of this? But all of a sudden, everybody hates Cyclops. But I'm like, when you look at the situation, it's real creepy that you're on Wolverine's side. Like, you have this couple, married, they're cool. Then, dude, a third person shows up and is essentially like, dude, move out the way and let me take your wife. And everybody's like, yes, let him take your wife. And it's like, wait, what?
Hey, and like, you know, speaking of that, because I'm a big Cyclops fan, man.
Me too.
Like, I may have commented before, but like, that's one of my favorite X-Men.
Me too.
And back in the 90s, like, especially when the cartoon was out, I remember all my classmates, we loved Cyclops. My cousin, like, Cyclops was our dude. And I remember I was telling my wife, this is back when I think we were still dating at the time. We weren't married yet, but I was telling her, I was like, yeah, Cyclops is the leader. Because she didn't realize, because the movies don't showcase it like that.
Yep.
I was like, okay, this is the best way to look at it. I was like, babe, remember how Captain America was in the first Avengers, where he's giving everybody like their mission of what they need to do, and he looked at Hawk and he said, Hawk smash?
Yeah.
I was like, imagine that. That's supposed to be what Cyclops is telling his team.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
I'm like, that's how that. And then I was like, and Storm is like right there with him.
Exactly.
I was like, that's how it's supposed to be. I was like, these movies, this ain't X-Men. I don't know what this is, but it's not X-Men.
It's true.
They should have just.
It's weird because like it's like he planted the seed, and then all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of like kind of sort of fans jumped on the bandwagon and we're like, oh, Wolverine is the greatest and Cyclops sucks. And I'm like, wait a second. So him and his wife gave birth to the mutant Messiah. Like, let it sink in. They gave birth to a Messiah. Like, his bloodline is legendary. His dad is a fucking space pirate. His brother has been a terrorist. He's been part of X Factor, working for the government. They've fought off in invasions. They've been doing time traveling escapades, trying to protect their kid because they know that their kid will one day do something big. And somehow he's corny. He's just as awesome as Wolverine is, but in a different way, which goes back to when we were talking about Superman. That whole narrative of you have to be edgy in order to be hardcore or to be whatever. All Cyclops does is train, and he believes in the mission to his dying breath. Like to the point where it's like there's nothing else. It's like how Ryu just believes in learning the fight, like just only fighting and bettering himself through combat. That's Cyclops when it comes to the dream of mutants and humans living in equality together peacefully. And he's willing to do whatever the fuck it takes to do this, which puts him perfectly at odds with Magneto, who's on the other end, where he's like, fuck that, we can't live in peace. Or at least he used to be. He's like, we can't live in peace, and I'm going to prove it by all means. We can't live in peace, and I'm not trying to live in peace, and, Yeah,
because, like, based on how movies are done, you can paint the wrong picture to the audience that don't know really about the lore of the characters.
Exactly.
Like, you kind of have them miss out on the opportunity of really knowing what these characters are about, because you're now spinning a narrative because you made them this way in that movie. And a lot of the times, the way that you see them in a movie it's the first time they're seeing them.
Exactly.
Like, when I was little and saw Christopher Reeve the Superman, that was one of my first things of seeing them. And it was done right, because when I started like looking at the old cartoon, my dad got me the old cartoons, like when they would come on, he's like faster than a locomotive, and then it went into reading the comic books. But like, look, as much as I love Snyder and for what it is, like I like a lot of the Snyder stuff. I don't make that a secret. But if like that was one of the first things I've seen, I wouldn't really know like what Superman is really like.
Exactly.
Like when we saw Batman v Superman, dude, like I started shaking my head in the theater, because I'm like, I guess you can blame Snyder. It's his fault, I guess.
It was his idea,
But like when you hear people cheering when Batman has the upper hand on Superman, the audience misses the point. It shouldn't be. It's not supposed to be like that. If anything, you're supposed to be in a standpoint of like, I don't want to see them fighting. When Superman was getting beat up and I hear this girl like cheering and start clapping, I'm like, he's not the villain.
Yeah.
Oh, like what happened here? And this whole time I'm watching it, like what happened? And that's where you have to get the blame on to the people who made the movie, because the point that they were trying to get across didn't come across the best way.
Well,
So it's like
they bent the point. They bent the narrative to fit. They created a new narrative that doesn't match the history of that character. You know, historically, that's. I mean, they can be at odds, but it shouldn't be like we're trying to kill each other. Now, you know how many stories have happened where Batman's killing Superman all across the multiverse and shit. And I'm like, no, it's not supposed to be an easy feat. You can't constantly have Batman. All the different Batmans can beat Superman. Like, that doesn't even make sense.
Hey, that's what my brother would get mad at too. He was like, "This makes no sense."
Yeah, it makes no sense. So, like, in every universe, Superman's gonna tolerate this edgelord constantly trying to punk him because he's insecure. Like, really? Like, really? There was a.
Dude, you should hear my brother, man. He hates Batman v Superman, dog. Like, because he a big Superman fan too, and he just think like what you just said. He just thinks it's ridiculous. He was like, "I like Batman." He's like, "Don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but this is no competition."
Yeah, I know, and I'm a Batman fan, and like I like the two of them almost equally. I realized when I was a kid, I was always the Batman. Like, I liked the corny ass Adam West Batman. I used to watch that when I was a kid. And then I was jealous because my little brother was always into Superman, and he had the movies and like the cartoons and stuff. And it was just like Batman was always in the background back in the day. This is pre Keaton as Batman. Then after Keaton became Batman, all of a sudden Batman became the more popular guy. He moved to the forefront because, you know, Superman 4 kind of dropped Superman's like they didn't speak well of Superman after that movie, but it was weird. Like when Batman became more of a bankable character because of Batman '89, it was like the narrative changed. Now you see he could be tough. Yeah, in the comics we did have the Dark Knight Returns, but it was Batman '89 that kind of flipped everything, you know, and it made him more hardcore, and it was like, okay, this is cool. But like, I know that if it was a knockdown, drag out fight, Batman's dead within a couple minutes. Like, this isn't even a contest of like who can last and who can outthink Batman. Superman can think faster than Batman can. Superman should be smarter than Batman is. He's a fucking alien. Like, and he's got like in the Fortress of Solitude, there's files on everything. Like, he's been being taught all this shit on his way to Earth from Krypton. You know, light years of travel. He was just being fed information. There's no way you can say he's so dumb that he would allow those kind of things to happen. There was a book, I think it was Public Enemies, one of the issues of Superman Batman Public Enemies by Ed McGuinness was the artist, where the Kingdom Come version of Superman shows up in our time, and he sees Batman, and the first thing he does is snatch the utility belt right off of his body. And then he tells him that if you retaliate, he was about to, he took the utility belt, and then he picked up the Batmobile, one of the old Batmobiles, and was about to crush him with it. And he was like, if you survive this, I think he says something like, if you survive this, I could atomize you from outer atmosphere. And I'm thinking to myself, like you could. Like, why does this fight even? Why do you entertain this fight? Like, I get that I get that there's this level of Superman sees Bats as his best friend, and he doesn't look at him as an enemy ever. But like, when your best friend starts trying to kill you, you know what I mean? All bets are off. Now you got to change your strategy, you know? And they write, this is one of those things which is a symptom of like kind of bad writing, where you write characters out of character in order for stupid things to happen that fit whatever the narrative is. And I hate that.
And I'm glad I'm so glad you mentioned that, man, because it's like even going on to like keeping on with like the whole Batman v Superman thing. Like, it's weird that I'm talking about this movie like this because I enjoyed it, but I see its flaws. Yeah. And I love Zack Snyder as a director. I love the look. I think that like he's one of the best directors that know how to make a comic book movie look like a comic book. Just the cinematography, the art kind of like style, like the way he plays with shots, and he will actually mimic certain comic book shots within a scene.
Yep.
I think he's masterful at doing that. But at the same time, I think he misses the point about a lot of things, because you'll hear an interview where he'll say something and it's like, ah, damn, do you understand what's going on?
Yeah.
Like you have like the visual mind to make this stuff, but at the same time, when it comes to the characters, it was like, like he's just said some crazy things in interviews. Like one was
Batman could get raped in jail. I was like, what? Excuse me?
Even the one, because like, dude, I don't know if you were, I know I was waiting for it. The whole time I was watching Batman v Superman, I was waiting for what Zach called it, the heat scene. I wanted them to have like a conversation.
Yeah.
And then Snyder goes on to say, but when you see somebody with a big S on their chest and then the other guy with a big bat on their chest, it looks silly. Because he kept saying originally he wanted a heat scene. He's like, we got to have their ideologies kind of like clash and blah, blah, blah. Because the whole time I was waiting for that. And then to say that it'd be ridiculous because of how they're dressed.
I'm like, you're already in that universe. What are we doing? Yeah. That's literally what you're playing with. Like, what are we doing? Yeah, he said some weird shit. Him and David Goyer, man, they say weird shit that shows that they only get it to a point, but they don't fully get it, and they want to remake the stuff the way that they think that these characters should be.
Yes. And that's why, like, for like Transformers. I was actually just talking about this. I was like, Michael Bay is a director. I don't mind.
Yeah.
But when he did those movies, you can tell between him and Travis Scott who likes Transformers. Dude, I'm telling you, man, when me and my wife saw Bumblebee, I was geeked out at that movie. Just from the opening scene, I was like, number one, I could tell who the Autobots is.
I know, right?
I mean, like, and then they had like almost their voices. Like it sounded like the people like from the cartoon. Soundwave sounded like he was supposed to. In Michael Bay's version, okay, I guess that's Optimus Prime because it's his head, but his look was still off. Bumblebee, you could tell was Bumblebee, but like everybody else, it was like, I guess if you say so. Like,
exactly. Yeah, it's as if my solution to this is those directors, they direct, keep them away from the script. Be like, look, have the writers that actually know the shit write the story and be like, okay, apply your skill of directing to this script. Don't change shit. This is what it's gonna be.
And even with like Bumblebee, I wish that they would do a straight up Cybertron movie.
Oh yeah, we all do.
Because going along with, like, I can even bring Mario into this, because they made Mario all animated and they didn't like put him in real life like how they did Sonic.
Yep.
And I like the Sonic movies, don't get me wrong, but
me too.
After seeing Mario, I'm like, man, seeing Sonic like in his realm for the whole 90 minutes or whatever that movie, you know, I feel like it plays better, and you can use all of the lore of the game like they did in Mario.
Yeah.
Like I just think that was dope. I was like, we don't have to have this like human protagonist being friends with Bumblebee and then all this other stuff. It's like, nah, man, like give me all the shots of Cybertron and Bumblebee. Give me all of that for like 90 minutes or more. I'm good.
Yeah, I'd be good. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because like there's so much logic that's missed when they do things the way they're doing it. Like Travis Knight, legit, like he's an animator, and he said he grew up on Transformers. He legit grew up on Transformers, and you see it in his direction and his team and the animation and everything. The fact that like they can some of them control their fucking shots. Like, because they can create the fucking rounds that are coming out of their weapons in some cases. You also see things like he got the right shape for the Seekers on Cybertron. They actually turned into Tetrajets, and it was like he clearly likes Transformers. Like, I'm a Transformers dork too, and he clearly paid attention to all that stuff. And when he says he loves it, because a lot of people say it because the job requires them to say it, so that the usual suspects are like, this movie's gonna be great, even though it's just words. They're just saying shit. But he said it, and then you could see it. And if you saw like Kubo and Coraline and some of the other stuff he's worked on, you see like his attention to detail and the way that he can convey emotion with you know, these animated characters. You can tell that he's watched a lot of Miyazaki shit. He's watched, you know, good Disney stuff, you know, and then just Saturday morning stuff that was well done. But what I noticed is, you notice they're already going back to fucking it all up, because this new movie, they screwed up again, where like now they have Mirage in the body of Jazz, and then they have Wheeljack in the body and shape of Ironhide. And like, there's all these weird things that you're just like, what? You really went out of your way to fuck this up. You could have easily just chosen the character. I mean, they're literally designated with this shit. Like, that's part of their character. And you literally fucked it up the same way that Michael Bay and his team did. Like, there's no need for you to not put Jazz in his, you know, proper form. Like, there was no other than the fact that they gave him a he has a device in the movie where he multiplies like a he makes holograms, which is what Mirage used to do. Is he used to make like hologram decoys of himself. Other than that, all you had to do was be like, yo, this is a device I got from Mirage. Problem solved. Problem solved. That's not even a whole line of dialogue. Problem fucking solved. All the people who know Transformers would be like, oh shit, Mirage. Oh shit, it's Jazz. Like, we'd be geeked. But nah, you had to make him a whole different character because of one little gimmick. And like with what's his face? With Wheeljack, I'm like, why? Why? If they just showed you that if you do it right, the fans will love your story. They will love your characters. In Bumblebee, they made Bumblebee turn into a fucking Volkswagen Bug, hence the name. They made, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't rocket science. It's an old cartoon aimed at fucking 6 and 7 year olds. Like, why is this so difficult? I don't understand. But you, again, you have uncreative people working on things that were created by creative minds. Like, they just don't they don't get it.
Like, people don't, like, they don't know how to have, honestly, it's like they don't really know how to have fun in them. They don't know how to have fun with stuff. Like, I guess you can almost kind of attribute it to there's a lot of people in our world that kind of let that kid die in them.
Oh yeah, they hit a certain age.
I feel like a lot of when they're working on this stuff, I feel like that like kid in them that like this stuff is gone.
Yeah.
So everything is, we have to make this thing make sense that we put it in there, and it's like, okay, wait, but how is it done in the book? The book is, that's gonna go over people's head. How do you know? Because we know.
Yeah, I make the big bucks, therefore I know. Yeah, it's
like, this is how we have to have this person do this and this, and it all has to relate to reality. If you can't do it in real life, or it can't be, you know, it's like, come on, man. Like, people like the Harry Potter series, and they do ridiculous stuff in Harry Potter. Man.
And it's magic based, so they can get away with it. It makes sense. You know what's funny too is this. So, from a design perspective, right? Character design. There were stupid things that were done in the Michael Bay Transformers that Steven Spielberg and his people, the people at Weta and all of them, they explained very bullshit explanations for why they did things that they did. So like the Transformers, the psychology of the design behind the Transformers, with them turning from machines, like vehicles and stuff, into bipedal robots, is that if they have a human-like form, kids can easily recognize and then start to empathize or start to like pay attention to and follow along with these characters because there's a form that's recognizable. Well,
Yeah.
Spielberg and his people and the Weta people and all them were like, "Oh, we have to go further. We're gonna put lips on Optimus Prime and many of the other guys." And I'm like, "But
Yeah.
they already have a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. You don't need lips for us to understand that they're human." But there are interviews where they say our design, we tried to make them as human as possible. They're not human. They're Cybertronians.
Right.
They're aliens.
Right.
But they have a bipedal form so that we can easily see ourselves in these characters. And we've been seeing ourselves in these characters since we were 6 and 7 years old. And you still went further, which means you don't get it. You're going way, you're over designing things that don't need to be. Also, like when you look at, and I've made this argument for years since I first saw those movies. They're called robots in disguise. But when you watch the first Transformers, none of those cars are good disguises. Everybody'd be like, "Damn, look at that rig. Look at that pimped out rig. Look at that freaking Corvette Stingray that looks like a fucking bullet and it didn't exist." Or the Camaro that didn't exist in the year that movie came out. I was like, "What? Really?" Like, and people argue these points. They're like, "Oh, they could turn into whatever they want." I'm like, "Yet they turned into shit that would make them stand out like a sore thumb." When the whole point is that there's a war going on, and the reason why we can't find these guys fighting this war is because they turn into something as mundane as the cars you see on the street. And, and somehow these fools spent millions of dollars to make this franchise and didn't get it. And the audience is so dumb that they're just like, "Yep, nope, nope, nope." You know what I mean?
It's all about training the audience, man. And it goes into when we were talking about Black Panther.
Yeah.
A lot of people get trained to say things, or to believe things. They get trained to believe them. A lot of the times, man, like people don't feel a certain way until
somebody
they listen to until somebody says it, and then it's like, because I've literally seen people, like in my actual life, I've seen people like something, and then they watch a couple videos, and then they're like, "I don't know if I like it."
Yeah, I have to.
What? How?
I know, right? That's their opinion. It's not yours. Now, unless it's something like if we did, like, say we did a full on breakdown of Transformers and we compared the elements of the movies to the comics and the animations and even the video games, maybe that I get it, because like the fact that the Allspark in that was something else. In the Allspark is supposed to be like God in Transformers lore, but in some of these other things that people have been just given carte blanche to make up whatever with the names that they want to use, they've made the Allspark all kinds of other things. But if we broke it down to them, they're like, "Look at how dumb this movie is, and look at how smart this kids show actually was." Maybe then I'd be like, "Okay, I get you. I get how you could flip," and you'd be like, "Yeah, I don't really like this movie anymore. I realize how stupid it is." But like in general, there's things like serious things, like people's, I don't know, politics or people's stances on social issues that, like, they hear someone else who's charismatic give their point, and their point doesn't make sense, but it sounds like it does. And then they're like, "I believe that guy," because they're popular. Or a basketball player or somebody says something really stupid about a specific issue that makes them sound like they're smart. They sound like they know what's going on. And then you hear people start cottoning on.
Because like one of the things that I like to say is, like, people like to look for the person dressed in a nice suit standing at a podium. If that shows any kind of power and they know how to talk, that's who they will follow, man. Like, and going along, like, because I was really excited, like when we were messaging each other and you brought up Ant-Man. Okay. So we had tickets to see Ant-Man. We saw it opening weekend. It was me, my wife, and my sister. Because we've been hanging out with my sister a lot. Like, she's I didn't tell you this when we were talking, but she survived cancer recently.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. So like we've been like just kind of making her feel like good again, because like I also lost my brother-in-law while like she was in, like on going through cancer treatment. She lost her husband.
Damn.
And so Yeah, so like it's just been a lot. So we've all been like hanging out together. So, anyways, just painting a picture. Like we all loved it. Like we went to the
Yeah.
theater. I was geeked about it. It got me real excited for Marvel stuff. And before the movie, and even after the movie, I'm seeing all these people hate on it, and I'm like, man, I feel like if you like the first two Ant-Man movies, it's literally the same.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is the same. It's the same. Like I feel like I actually liked it better than the second Ant-Man movie.
Me too. Me too.
I'm
Me
like,
too.
I don't understand. Like, I didn't understand like the hate for it. I was like, I loved it. I'm planning on buying it when it come out. Like, I thought it was dope, man.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. And when you hear the things that people said about it and what they didn't like about it, I didn't see that. I didn't see what they were talking about. I was like, man, like this is an Ant-Man movie. It literally goes in line. It's one of those trilogies where you could like literally watch them back to back to back. Like if you wanted to have a movie night and just watch the Ant-Man movies,
Yeah.
you could literally watch all of them back to back to back. It's not like Quantumania like felt so off and so different.
Exactly.
And I was like, I don't get it, man. Like they were just saying some crazy stuff, man. Like they were saying Ant-Man he didn't really have a big part. I was like, okay, you may have given what's her mom? Wasp's mom's name?
Janet.
Janet, yeah. Like, yeah, she had a bigger role, but like everything still kind of tied back to Ant-Man. Like
Exactly.
he was still like
he was the main character. Oh shit. Oh, there you are. Yeah, it just dropped for a second.
Oh, I was wondering what that noise was.
But yeah, you were saying like he was still the main character, right?
Yeah, he was still like the main like focal point of that movie. I was like, I was like, it is what it is, man. I was like, I thought it was dope, man. I just don't see the things that everybody else was saying about it. Like, I didn't see it that way.
It was a lot of nitpicking, and it's exactly the thing that we were talking about earlier with people online, kind of shaping the discourse because they said this thing first. They said it before many people got to see the movie, so they shaped your expectations by giving you this weird, like, nitpicky view of what you saw. And, like, I've been told I nitpick, and I'm like, yo, everything I'm telling you, I usually explain from the fundamentals all the way up to the, like, in the weeds type shit. And whenever I'm reviewing a film or something like that, I break down the why. I don't just tell you what my preference would be, because I also am the same guy who says I love B movies, like B martial arts movies. B grade martial arts movies are terrible.
Yeah.
They're terrible films with good fight scenes, but they're still B grade movies. So I can't be like, this movie is the best movie that was ever made. It clearly isn't, because it's a B grade movie. It's lower grade than what can make it to the theater. And I know this, you know what I mean? So I'm never telling people like, you know, just because I said it, it's amazing. I know the difference between, you know, your B, your Z grade, your grindhouse films, your indie circuit. You know what I mean? Like, I know the difference. I also know the difference between what the director did and what the writers are doing. So, like, people would say, oh, you're nitpicking, because they never thought about some of the points that I'm pointing out. And I noticed that when it comes to these folks that hurry up and get their opinion out there first, which is a big problem when it comes to action figures, you got a lot of people who get the most eyes on them because they get the reviews out faster than anyone else, but they don't say anything. They don't say shit. I don't know how many times I've watched, before I did the Mezco Keaton Bats review, I watched all these videos where people were making excuses for the figure and telling you how to fix things, but they weren't saying, it sucks that I have to fix this, or like, I waited all this time and it's not perfect. Instead, they were like, oh yeah, you just do this, you just do this, you just do this. I'm like, you're really giving us insight as to what kind of a man you actually are if you're allowing someone to do you dirty and you come up with excuses for why it's not as bad as it actually is. And a lot of people are just cool with it. And I'm like, hey, I'm not. Because I'm not that man. I'm the man who, if you ask me to do it, it gets done. If you ask me what's wrong with something, I'll tell you what's wrong with it, and I'll also tell you how to fix it. Because that's literally it's how my brain works, you know what I mean? So I don't like when you get that influx of people, which YouTube is all about this now, that they get their voice out there first, and then they shape the discourse. They do it poorly, but that just becomes the way people feel about stuff because
Yeah.
you know they're listening to those voices before anyone else's, and for some reason maybe their suit is the nicest, like you just pointed out. Maybe their channel looks cool, you know what I mean, the music on the channel or something, their you know, values are their production values are nice and people dig that. But they're still not saying anything, and that becomes the discourse, and it sucks because then you come across people like us who will kind of challenge their discourse, their stance, and they can't fight back. They don't know how to fight back because they don't have all the information.
Like it's like a lot of that, like too. It like for me, and I know you used to watch wrestling too. Like like I know me and like ODC, we're like the huge like biggest wrestling nerds. Whenever I talk, like I got to do that work. You know, I dabble in current wrestling here and now and then just to see if it's like good, and it's not. But like, I'll watch the pay-per-views, and I'm picky about my wrestling because I grew up on this shit. I feel like I know wrestling so well. So when I see it done a certain way, it's like I can point out, like in a Royal Rumble match, why are they not telling a certain story? Why are they doing these ridiculous spots where people are literally standing around and watching two people fight in the middle of the ring? That makes no sense. Like, I'm pointing out all of these things, and it's like, yeah, it can sound nitpicky, but it's like, dude, like, I'm basing this company off of what they were before.
Exactly. I think, losing you again. Oh, there you are. Yeah,
Damn, okay, I'm back.
Yep, you're back. No, I think what it is that you, because I run into this with comics, I run into this with movies, I run into this with any type of discourse. We used to run into it when it came to wrestling because people couldn't believe that I used to watch it and then I stopped.
Yeah.
And I was like, once you get used to the way a thing works, like when you know how the sausage is made, you can see the flaws, you can see what's wrong, you know what you don't like, you know what doesn't make sense. And when you start to see that become the norm, you're like, yeah, I can't do it. I'm good. I'm gonna back off. And I think like the fact that they didn't think about it, they're just like, you know, I didn't bother. You're thinking too hard. They always say shit like that. You're thinking about it too hard. It's fake. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, but it's supposed to in the context of the thing we're watching. Because otherwise, how do you decide that you like this guy over that guy or girl? You know what I mean? Like,
because one of the biggest things me and my brother talk about is if a casual were to turn to wrestling and nowadays, they wouldn't know who the bad guy is or who the good guy is.
Yeah, they're so similar.
Because you used to see like differences. You used to see cheating.
Yeah.
You used to see them doing stuff behind the referee's back. And fights used to resemble more of a brawl. It wasn't just like these crazy spot fests where it's like you're doing all this ridiculous stuff and not even giving the crowd enough time to kind of enjoy the big move that you're doing because the whole match is all of this. Okay, like how about you work on a body part that's injured, or you know what I mean? Like just everybody used to have a signature punch.
Yeah.
Like if you looked at the way Bret Hart punched people, the way Hogan punched people, nobody's moves look similar. Now
everybody looks the same.
One of my friends made a joke. He was like, now wrestling matches is like, all right, as soon as the bell rings, let's do all the moves.
I know, go through the whole moves list. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
It looks too choreographed when before they actually used to simulate a fight. Like, yes, wrestling's fake, but it used to simulate the fact that it is real. The stuff used to look like it hurt.
Yeah.
Even the punches used to look like it hurt. It felt like there was a impact to it.
Yeah.
Now, guys are doing these real weird, fast, almost girly punches, and it's like, what is that doing to him? Like, you got him in the corner, you never, like, I don't know. It makes it ridiculous, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just makes it ridiculous.
Like they don't know the fundamentals. The fundamentals of like how do you sell these moves. Also like stand-up game versus, you know, the technical grappling, and then like the luchador, lucha libre type acrobatics with all the high risk shit. Like I remember back in the day when you would see people like Jushin Thunder Liger and like I used to like watching the Japanese guys fight. And I had some friends that used to watch. They used to get the tapes of what was it called? Fire Pro, the Japanese wrestling. Yeah, Fire Pro Wrestling. They used to get the tapes, and we used to watch those, and you'd see like a completely different. I mean, it's similar, but you'd see a different level of technical ability when it came to like the base level moves that most guys could do. You know, drop toe holds. You'd see like counters to like arm holds. Like if someone twisted somebody's arm and had him in a lock, you'd see him figure out a way to counter it and stuff. And then like you had guys that were purely counter based, so like they would let the other guy grab them and do something, and then they would figure out a way out of it. And then you'd even hear the commentators like, yo, there's nothing this guy doesn't know how to get out of. And then that would become the game. That's the story being told. Yeah, like they don't get it. They get the topical thing. They get the reaction that the crowd had to certain personalities. And even that, you don't really have personalities now because everybody's edgy. So nobody's edgy.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves is you don't have personalities anymore. Like you'll look at a guy and you'll just be like, okay, like, but what is your character?
Yeah.
I understand you have this name, but like, what's your character? What are you? Like Bret Hart was the excellence of execution. So when he did his moves, he made it look damn near perfect every time.
Every time.
Was the point.
Yep.
Like that was literally the point. And it's like now you look at guys, it's like, okay, Roman Reigns, but who are you though? Like what who are you? Like seriously, it's like you're just a badass that knows how to do some moves. And the guys don't look unique from each other anymore.
I know.
Just like a lot of things now. And that goes into even video games. Video games aren't even unique from one another anymore. A lot of them, if it's a certain genre,
it's
that genre of games, it's the same thing. Like everybody was talking up, it could be a good game, but everybody's like, oh, that Hogwarts Legacy. I'm like, but it's an open world game just like other open world games. It's just Harry Potter.
Yeah. Yep.
Like it's like where's I have the video game discussion all the time, man. I'm damn near sick of them.
Yeah, I do too. I
mean, because I just miss and it all ties into what we're talking about. Like I just miss the creativity, man. Like everything now has to be real life. Like I play simulation basketball games and whatnot. It's cool, but sometimes I do want to play with what NBA Jam used to be. I remember as a kid I played NBA Jam all the time.
Oh,
like
that arcade
you don't
style.
Always need these like thinking like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta call this defense and offense. No, I just want to like pick up and play a game just for a little bit.
Yep.
I don't want nothing to have me sit there and tie me down because like we just discussed earlier, like when you're an adult, it's hard to get that like long gameplay in, especially when you like have a family.
Oh my God.
So it's like me and my wife do so much together. I pick my spots on what I want to play, and a lot of the times I'm playing games and I'm either getting frustrated or it's a game where I can't just pick it up and play for 15 minutes because it's like I got to do this, and this. It's like I don't know. Just I need the industry to get creative again. I need some change ups, man. I mean, because you go back to like even like the Nintendo 64 days and stuff. Everything you were getting like new stuff constantly.
Yeah.
And it's like now it's like, hey, but the graphics are pretty. Like what makes this game good? And it's like, I mean, and that's what you hear a lot of people focus on. It's like,
just the graphics.
What makes this game good? Hey, look at the graphics. It's like, oh my gosh. But I just hate the idea that everything has to be the same when there's no. And I remember in the video you talked about this before, like when people, I can't remember if you mentioned like Call of Duty. I think it was something with figures, but like how people were dissing that one Call of Duty because it was futuristic and they wanted our regular military looking like guys.
You're talking about what was it, Infinite Warfare? Man, that game was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
It's like not everything has to be like our guy, like our U.S. military and all of that. It doesn't have to be like that. It could be some like out there stuff, man.
Yeah, like there's homogenization. They've like everything. We're seeing it with action figures right now because they've been. One of the things that I hate is in recent years, 6-inch figures, meaning no matter what the character is, they got to stand 6 inches tall, has become the thing. And you hear people talking about scale, and I'm like, do you understand that scale means proportionate to a certain, You know, like the smallest person is still in proportion to whatever the scale is that you decide to choose to, and the largest person as well.
Yes.
That's why I keep saying the Soda Street Fighter line it's my favorite line of all time, because scale, it was relative scale. Everybody was, your smallest person was, I think, Sakura, your tallest person was T-Hawk, and it looked like they fit in. It was relative. It felt real. Just like in the games, when you look at the games, you can see that like your biggest character is like Hugo. Now the biggest character is Abigail, and the smallest character is probably like Ibuki, and it was cool to see their proportions accurately, in toy form, accurately represented. Even though they screwed up with Ibuki, they made her too tall, but still, you got this like, different. They all had a similar articulation scheme, but like depending on the sculpt, some guys had double jointed elbows and some guys didn't. But if they're ginormous, you don't really need them to have double jointed elbows because they're huge. They're not going to be doing the agile stuff, But you hear right now, in America, people are ignoring 4-inch scale stuff in favor of 6-inch scale stuff. And it's not even like 6-inch, pure, like real 112 scale. It's literally almost everything being 6 inches tall. And when you try to deviate from that, you're seeing those companies, some companies are doing well, like Jazzwares is doing incredibly well. Fucking Joy Toy is doing incredibly well. They just can't seem to fail right now. Everything they're doing, and then the fact that they got the license for Warhammer 40K, it was almost ingenious because anything they do, that fan base is gonna buy it, and you already know that fan base has money because the miniatures are expensive. So that was a brilliant move on their point as a business. But the big thing is, so you have them, you have Toys Alliance with Acid Rain, and there's a couple other higher end 4-inch toy lines that like most American collectors just don't even think about, because everybody else is collecting 6-inch, so they all dick ride the dick riders. They all dick ride the fucking 6-inch figures, and I'm like, but you guys all collected GI Joes. Like, I know from like the early part of my channel, there's like a ton of you on there that like collected GI Joes. You love the fact that the Joes could go in vehicles. There was a plethora of vehicles, and if you get new Joes, for the most part, you could fit them in the old vehicles. So all you had to do was track down that old vehicle, because they don't make vehicles like this anymore. And you could get that full, play sets, everything. You could get that full experience. Now they're like, nah, it has to be in 6 inches, so I can spend $500 on a Jeep for my 6-inch GI Joes, or $600 for a 6-inch or 112 scale, Sky Striker for my, like, what the fuck are we doing? Who has the room for that? You know what I mean? Like, for everything we already got in 4-inch scale, 1/18 scale, now we're going to get it in 112 scale, and you got room in your house for all of that? Like, it doesn't even make sense, but that's become the norm, and you can't even just fathom something else. Like, one of the things I've been struggling with making figures is, so I'm working on a line, and my initial idea was to have the line be a 1/18 scale line, and have like, vehicles that will have an adapter, like a seat that you could put in or pull out to allow for 112 scale figures if you wanted to use it for that. But the line itself would just be 1/18 scale. And everybody's like, nah, you got to do what's popular because you want it to sell. And I'm like, it's true. But it's like, why is it that there's no room for anything other than whatever the status quo is right now? And that's what that kills me. It kills me because I'm not that guy. I don't fit in the box. Like,
Yes, because like, okay, I love what you just said, because like going back to, again, like design and all of this other stuff, like I've seen this with gaming recently.
Yeah.
So, WWE 2K comes out every year. It's trash. but graphically,
It looks
It
good.
looks amazing.
Yeah.
People, yeah, it's photorealism, right?
Yeah.
So AEW's coming out with a game, and purposefully they're making a game with the old. They even brought back the guys who made like No Mercy and WCW versus NWO Revenge. It's the same team of people making their game. So on purpose, they have an artistic style where it looks a little more cartoony, like those games did back in the day. And even though some people are excited for the game, all over the internet when they first show like what the game looks like, they're like, the graphics are bad. Like 2K looks better. Just because it's a different art style doesn't mean that the graphics look bad. Like,
Exactly,
the graphics
it's different.
are cartoony. It's an intentional thing. If they wanted to make it photorealism, they could have done that.
Yep.
A different route, but in no way, shape, or form does that mean that the graphics are bad. You might prefer 2K.
I agree.
That doesn't mean that the graphics are bad though, and that's kind of like where we fit in, like with figures, how things have to be a certain way, and and if it's not that way, it's the wrong thing or it's bad.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's weird, man.
Yeah, people don't understand like art direction, because I've had that conversation with people too. They'll say the graphics on something are bad, when in reality they're saying they just don't like that style. So like I remember watching and I corrected the guy. It was a video where someone was talking about all the different versions of Tekken. It was like a retrospective, and then he dissed the shit out of the first Tekken tag, and he said it looked like the Game Boy Advance version, and I was like, dude, that's factually just bullshit. I was like, I don't care if you're trying to be funny or something, but that's bullshit. I was like, the PS2 era Tekken games had shit where like veins were popping up. You could see muscles expand you could see their chest expand when they breathe. Same thing. It started with the Dreamcast, but it was like there were these advancements that were made where the models, compared to the arcade, which was the standard, the game looked better at home than it did in the arcade. So for you to say it looks like shit shows that you don't even understand what was done. I'm like, if you don't like the style, say you don't like the style, but don't disrespect all the work that these people put in because you just are ignorant about a thing, you know? And you see it a lot. A lot of people will diss things with like a very minuscule amount of knowledge on the subject. And it's like, you could just say it don't work for you. You don't get it. You don't like it. You don't understand it. Whatever. Don't just say it's garbage. Everything's trash. Everything's trash. Everything's garbage. You even hear this with collectors where like, Hasbro will do the normal song and dance. Today they put out a figure. Then tomorrow they put the same figure out with a different costume. And everybody says the old one is trash and the new one is amazing. And it's the same fucking figure with a new coat of paint. Or like a slightly different head sculpt or something. It's like, this one isn't trash. Because if that's all you could get, aren't you going to be content with it? Like, until you can get the new one, it's great, right? Like, I don't get it. It's like it's an unfair, like, because there's always a new shiny, the old thing is always trash. And it's like, when are we going to stop playing into the marketing and shit? They've trained you to feel like that. They've trained you to understand things like this. Or to
like, because in a lot of cases, man, and this goes with a lot of different things, a lot of fans, they like to kind of argue against like their best interest.
Oh yeah.
And what I mean by that is, so you were mentioning vehicles, and me and you've talked about vehicles privately.
Mm-hmm.
So because we were talking about how like they don't really make them anymore.
Yeah.
I remember when the Ghostbusters line came out, I wanted the Ecto 1 for the 6-inch line that they came out with, because I got all 4 guys. Because when I was a kid, I had all 4 Ghostbusters from that cartoon, and for Christmas, my dad got me the Ecto 1, and you could put all 4 in there. You could put 2 in the back, 2 in the front. I loved it.
Yeah.
My RoboCop. When I was a kid, I had RoboCop, and I actually had like his cop car.
Man, I wanted that thing. I never got it.
Yeah, dude. Like it stuff like that was awesome. And then like I remember when I put the comment down like that when I was watching a review, I had a reply, and they said, "Well, it's too big to fit in stores, so that's why they don't do it." And they were coming from a standpoint, he was saying some other stuff, so I understand it, because it's too big and they won't be able to sell it in stores. I'm like, well, all these online retailers, like, you can't put it as a big bad toy store thing. You can't even put it as an Amazon thing. Like, what does that have to do with us that they can't put it in? And I've seen vehicles in stores.
I was gonna say,
so
like, Barbie.
Make any sense.
Barbie is the catch-all. Barbie vehicles are the catch-all end to that argument that you just can't. I remember, so on my Patreon, when they announced the Hell Charger, JC went on this rant where he was dissing people who were saying that they know that you could do this vehicle for cheaper, and he was trying to, because he's a Marvel stan, like anything Marvel, he just is like, buy it. He, even if he doesn't know who they are, he's always, I'm not familiar with the character. He'll mispronounce their name and shit, but I'm gonna buy it when it first comes out, and I'm gonna pay whatever they charge because I love Marvel and blah blah. And just like, dude, you're not a good news person because you should be impartial. Just tell us the news, and then in the comments when we chat with you, then you tell us your opinion. But he always tries to sell the product, and I'm just like, dude, shut up. Like, at least just give us the information and move on. But anyway, he was dissing people who are saying that they know, and he was like, oh, you're gonna have a lot of experts out there who know that this could be done cheaper and blah blah blah. Don't listen to them. So I made a video, a vlog on, I was pissed, I made a vlog on my Patreon where I just went through the plethora of Barbie vehicles that are like 5 times the size, 2 to 5 times the size of that Hell Charger, that you could go to the store right now and buy, and none of them cost $100 or $200 or even $300. I even brought up Imaginext vehicles that are big scale vehicles that are like $80, and they're mechanized, they have lights and sounds, and they have interactivity with other, like remote interactivity with other Imaginext toys. And I'm like, the fact that you guys are so stupid that because you have money, you don't even stop to think of the fact that they can actually do this, and they're doing it. And they're doing it for reasonable prices, but you're trying to, it's like a dick measuring contest. And I always bring up that no panties have ever dropped because you had a toy collection. So like trying to act like this is some type of, like, you know what I mean? This is a status symbol or something because you were able to buy a $300 fucking 1/12 scale charger. Like, you got completely swindled out of your money. When you could go to the store right now, buy a remote control one for like $50. Same size. Just take the inside stuff out, put your toy in there, call it a day. But you want to spend $300 because it's Marvel Legends and you can brag about it on a fucking forum or a Facebook page or group or whatever. Like, it's just dumb. And they know that this is the way, because they've trained you to be like this. They know that's the way you guys are going to react to it, that people are going to just, they're just going to enjoy it. They're just going to be like, yo, I need this. Take my money. You see it every time they announce a new thing. Take my money. That corny ass 5-pack with those villains, it was like a boar-headed dude and like, what I'm talking about? It was like Spider-Man villains that were like fucking Z-list villains, and they were like, take my money. I'm like, who asked for this? Some of you guys don't even know when the last time these guys showed up in print was, and you're like, take my money. And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Oh my God. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But I'm telling you, like, I had Barbie examples. I had a Barbie, I found a picture of a Barbie, like a RV, and I had seen it. It's currently at Target. It was like $70. I had one that was a truck with a like a trailer for the horse. That thing was like $60. And mind you, all these things fit 12-inch figures, so they're much bigger than the things for your 6-inch figures. And I'm like, don't listen to people like JC. Go look with your own eyes, see what's out there, then make your voice heard to these companies, because the minute we stop buying this shit, they're gonna have to figure out how to make us buy this shit, which means they're gonna have to drop the prices, and they're gonna have to be more realistic.
And that's something that I was gonna get into as well. Is like, they talk about, like, the toy community and all of this stuff. Like, we're really not a community by the definition of what a community is. We're really not a community because it's It's every man for themselves. If you can't get it, ha ha, you broke.
I know, right?
You know, like that's it's like there's never any pushback. It's like, okay, if you see something that's kind of ridiculous, like fight against that, man. Like you vote with your wallet, man.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy. I don't know. It's just insane, man. It's like you know what these companies can do and what they're capable of. Yep. Stop letting them take advantage of you, man. And the best way to do that is everybody got to be united. You can't just have like a small amount of people know what the bullshit is, and then everybody else just I'm gonna gobble it up, man. As soon as it drops, I'm just throwing my money at it. And then what's even worse is you would think that people would have a different mindset when you look at like how things are right now, like with the economy. Like you would think that collectors would wise up, and it's like they're really not, man. It's like wow, that's insane, man.
Yeah, it's painful because like, you know, like now one of the things that I struggle with is I have to look at the market differently now because I mean I know what sells, and I do get like, you know, there's a couple sites I've always been on that's how I got my information about which companies were doing what, how much they were pulling in on a yearly basis. You know what I mean? Like knowing what the numbers are. But now, like looking at actively what collectors are buying, what they're not buying, what they like, what they don't like here in the US. Everywhere else it's a little different. In the rest of the world, they're sick of the MCU. They're sick of Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. They're tired of that shit. They all want new stuff. In America, they're like, give me more of the same shit that we've been getting for the last like 60 years. And it's kind of weird because it's like, you know how many cool things have come out that no one talks about? You know how many like lesser known, I shouldn't say lesser known, but they're popular but not as popular as Marvel, that have been like the Masterverse stuff. The Masterverse stuff is killing it, but because it doesn't look exactly like the classics, everybody's trying to diss them like the usual suspects are. But like if you've bought them, you know how awesome they are. That buck that they use for male and female characters, it's perfect. Like I don't have issues with it. You know, hands plug in and stay plugged in. You can't say that for like Mafex figures. Mafex figures you put the hands on and they fall off on their own. Like there's so many little things that these figures can do that others can't, and people don't give them the props they deserve. I mean, there's a certain crew out there that does, but like it's not at large. Same thing goes for like comparing Mafex figures to like Sentinel figures. Sentinel makes such a better product, and yet people big up Mafex so hard because it's the Marvel Legends guys. They finally got into imports because of Mafex, and so they dick ride Mafex. And it's like, but Sentinel makes a better product with less pieces and less gimmicks, you know? Like, I hate gimmicks with a fiery passion. And, like, when I see someone make a figure that, like, it does things. Like, for instance, the Miles Morales figure, I think in his arms, on one of... because he has 2 sets of arms and 2 sets of legs. One's with the shorts, and then in sneakers, and then he has the arms with the jacket on. I think the joint is a simpler double joint. It's really like a single joint with over 90 degrees of bend. And I'm like, if you could do that and you give me over 90 degrees so it's effectively doing what a double joint is supposed to do, I'm good, because that's what I want. I want the end result. But when you listen to the reviews, they diss the fact that it's a single joint. And I'm like, what does that mean? How is that bad? Like,
and it's because, and that's one of those things where it's a talking point, so they have to take that talking point and run it with everything.
With everything,
they
exactly.
Have to run it with everything. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter if it could be something that fits better if it being a single joint or whatever. But it's because everybody talks about like, oh, double jointed this and double jointed this. The minute that something doesn't have it's got a huge knock. And then a lot of these people don't even pose and play around with their figures. So what does it matter to you?
Exactly. Yeah, I've noticed that too. I'm like, they put them in these bog standard poses, and I'm giving an example. When I gave that example, the Miles Morales figure has double joints, but what I'm saying is there have been figures like that had less engineering and did the same things that the figures with more engineering, could do. But like I've pointed that stuff out a lot, where like you see the whack ass poses that these usual suspects put their figures in, but then they sit there and they're like, oh, he doesn't have a ab crunch, or he doesn't have much of a this, or what do you need it for? You're just gonna stand him up on your shelf? You know what I mean? It'd be different if you made him do something, or like how there's a couple guys out there that they put their figures, all of them, in the same poses. So like, it could be Spider-Man and you got him walking, like in a walking pose on the shelf.
Yeah.
And it's like, but he's Spider-Man, knees and elbows. Come on, everybody who knows who Spider-Man is knows he's got to be squatting with his knees pointing up to the sky and his elbows pointing out to the sides, and those are the poses.
Yeah.
And they don't do it. They don't do it. It's weird. It's just, I don't know. There's just too many voices that aren't saying anything. And then the folks that do know what they're talking about, because they didn't do it first, they get drowned out. And it sucks, man. It sucks. I mean, like I said, it kills the discourse. It kills it for movies. It kills it for pop culture in general. It's like we need to have the discussions like we used to. It almost feels like I still call them muggles. When it was us fans getting made fun of for loving this stuff, and we would have our discussions, it was as if we had more respect for the medium and we had more respect for what's being done. We didn't treat it the way that the muggles treat it. The muggles treat it the same way they treat sports and everything else. It's just another generic piece of entertainment, and you can tell because they don't ask questions. They just take it as it is. They never think past what's what's presented. It's just take the slop, just eat it up, don't say anything. And it gets old, because if you apply the logic that they use for other things, like when you buy a car, would you buy a car for full price if the seats weren't in the car? Nah, if they told you had to go buy the seats separate, you would never buy that fucking brand of car, right?
You would never do it.
You'd never do it. Yet there's people who do that with their games. Then the same thing with figures. Would you pay 3 times the price for a car that you could like literally just go to a different place to buy it and get it at regular price? Like regardless of that post saying that this car is rare, because you remember when that used to be the thing on like eBay and everywhere. It's rare, it just came out, but you would buy a new car at a different dealership if you could buy it for the regular price. Everybody would, because it doesn't make sense to overpay. But because of YouTube and because of the quote-unquote community, so that they can talk about it first, they pay an obscene price, and then they speak on it before everyone else. Like, there's so many things that need to change in order for everything to kind of get better, because right now it's like very like McDojo like, you know what I mean? Like it's very McDonald's like. Everything is just, it's like the fast food version of stuff, like all the showcases that people call reviews, and it's like just all you did was show me that you bought a thing. You didn't really tell me anything of what it does, what it can't do, how well it does, what it can do. You didn't do anything. You just told me you have money.
Didn't go into the history of the character.
Yeah, nothing.
Like I feel like me and ODC do a pretty good job. We talking about wrestling figures. We bring up, like, we know what event they wore the tights that the figure is made off of. We get into that much details because there's a lot of there might be some viewers who
they remember that
legend.
Yeah, they remember that stuff.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's people that's going to remember it. It's going to be people that's like, oh, I remember this wrestler, but oh yeah, that was the event that he wore those tights, or he did this and did that. But yeah, man, people just got to start having fun again, man. Even the people that make this stuff, like, you can tell when people are having fun, even when they're making certain figures. You look at like McFarlane. We geek out over McFarlane stuff, and when you see him do his unboxings, he felt like it's almost like he's about to start playing with the figures himself.
Exactly. Exactly.
He's enjoying himself. He's not all like stoic and serious. Like, he's having fun, and when you're having fun making something, and you can do the thing that you're doing, like the final product shows.
Yeah,
the final product shows, man.
It's very true. NECA is another company that, if you look at all the Ninja Turtle shit they're doing, they're having fun going down the line. A strange detail their
Yeah.
lead painter, right? Trevor Zammit. I went to school with that guy.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh snap!
yeah, it's weird because I was like, the name sounds familiar, and then I saw him on a live stream with one of the channels. It's one of those. They're not a huge channel, and I was like, wait a second, I know that dude. He's got a beard and shit now, but like I knew him when he didn't have any facial hair before he could grow that damn beard. Like it's just weird. I was like, wow, this is crazy, man. But
Yeah, man.
yeah, you could tell they're having fun. They remember the show fondly. I think some episodes they remember a little bit too fondly because the show is pretty bad when you go back and watch the old Ninja Turtles episodes. Like when Lil Strydent and I tried to bring him in to watch them, and so when we got past the first 5 episodes, you know, the pilot 5 episodes, we were like, yeah, ooh, Lord. He was like, Dad, I'm not liking this. He's like, this isn't funny. And I was like, yeah, I don't remember it being this bad. And we had to watch something else. It was bad, man. The joke is just joke after joke after joke after joke. And like,
you know, I haven't even seen that in a minute either, man. I haven't seen that since I was a kid.
Try finding it online and then just watch the first 5 episodes. It ends with them fighting Giant Krang, and then they shrink him back down and he flies off. And after that episode, watch the rest, and you just watch like 1 or 2, and you'll notice there's a difference in the animation. There's a difference in like the tone, because like the first 5 episodes, there were jokes, but it was more actiony, you know. And some of the jokes were kind of like by the way, you know. There's this goofy like April's interviewing people in the very beginning of the episode, the first episode. And he's like, these robberies they look to be the work of Japanese ninja. And she's like, how do you know that these were done by Japanese ninjas? Because the rope says it was made in Japan. You're like, that's fucked up, but it's kind of funny, you know, when you think about it. But but then they had like full-on action scenes, you know, where you're actually watching the Ninja Turtles be ninjas. But then as soon as that stuff's done, the rest of the series is them not being ninjas until the last season, where they tried to make them. They even look more like they did in the movies. They look mad, like angry. They're frowning. The sky. You know what I'm talking about? The sky's always red and stuff. And they fought more in that one. But yeah, it's weird, man. It's like, how did they? I guess it became a commercial for the toys, and they knew that was the purpose, and they didn't give a fuck. They were shameless. That's probably what it is, more than likely. But either way, though, they seem to be enjoying it because they're making every character that's ever shown up in the show. And, like, the figures are pretty quality figures, you know, I can't lie. I haven't had any of them break. I'm not buying all of the figures. I just bought certain characters, but you can see a difference in the quality versus what they were making prior to the Ninja Turtle stuff. And then the amount of accessories. It's like the neutrinos come with shit I don't even remember them using. You know, like little gadgets and stuff, and I'm just like, what was this from? Yeah. You know, it's just, you can tell they're having fun exploring this series all over again, and, you know, giving it to us in 3 dimensions. Uh-oh. You're back. You're back.
All right. I was like, it did it again.
I know, this is what usually happens to us at least once or twice. Me and ODC and Agent O, when we're doing these. Sometimes I'm like, it used to be bad, like worse, and that's why we would like, they'd be so spaced out, because I just get frustrated, like, come on, like, again. but okay, what did you think about, because I know I the name of our episode is that you and I talk movies and some other stuff, and we've talked a lot of the other stuff with a little bit of the movies tied in. What did you think? Well, what's the best thing you saw recently as far as movies go?
Man, before Mario, Creed. Yeah, I want to say I was real hype off of Creed. I love that movie, man. That's another one where, with that trilogy, I liked it better than the second one.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the first movie in trilogies always kind of holds that, like, it's like a certain advantage that it always kind of has over a lot of, like, the sequels. But, like, the trilogy as a whole is dope. But, like, 3, man, was good. That was dope.
It was good. Yeah, it was good. I thought, to a degree, it was like really hyped, like overhyped. But
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
good though. It wasn't like it's a bad movie at all. There were some cliche things that they did that I was like, why did you have to do that? But I kind of get it, given the world that they already created for Creed, Adonis to live in.
Yes.
It makes sense. But yeah, it was good. It was good. It's fucked up that Jonathan Majors, like, they do this all the time, where like when one of these stars start to finally get traction, then all these negative things pop up and try to pull them down.
Yep.
I'm like, man, because Jonathan Majors, he's been good. He's been like one of those guys who every role is so different from the last.
Yes.
You know, even in Quantumania, all the different Kangs don't feel like the same guy. And it's the same fucking actor, you know what I mean? And like,
It's breaking up.
oh, it's breaking up again. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, it's the same guy.
There we go.
Yeah, it's the same guy doing his thing, and like all the Kangs feel different, and like when you think about Jonathan Majors in Lovecraft Country, or Jonathan Majors in The Harder They Fall, or The Harder They Come. I think it's The Harder They Fall, right?
He was in.
That's the Western with him and Idris Elba.
Yeah.
It was good. That was good too, and he was so different from his character in Lovecraft Country.
And did you see the one where he played? Me and my wife just watched this. He played the first black, was it aviator flyer or whatever?
No,
the guy that
I didn't see that yet.
Oh, dude, I forgot the name of it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I saw
you know
it.
what I'm talking about? Yeah. Dude, that movie, he was dope in that, man.
Yeah, he's always one of the best parts of the films that he's in. So it's kind of hard seeing them do what they're doing to him based off of something that was already proven to be bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's what's crazy about it. Yeah, man. Like,
but yeah. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, like, that he even showed the receipts of every, of how it was all BS, and they still there's even rumors now Marvel has like got a plan to replace him if need be, and I'm like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah, he's too good. Like, you should be doing everything you can to keep him in your stable, because he's gonna be a draw, because he's so good at what he does. Dude's intense. Dude's believable. Dude has range, like so much damn range, man. It's just ridiculous. It's like, wow. He's one of the best actors they've had in these movies. I'm almost surprised that they didn't have him replace Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa.
Dude, yes. Yeah, you know what? Him or my wife actually said something. I was like, that wouldn't have been bad either. So the dude from Leverage that played, I think he's on the show Leverage, he played Hawkman in Black Panther, or Black Adam.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been bad.
He could have been T'Challa.
Yeah,
that would have been dope.
Yeah, he can do accents and everything. Yeah, I watched that with my little sister years ago. Leverage. We watched the whole series. She was like super into it, and the movie and stuff. Yeah, that guy's name is Hodge, Aldous Hodge. Yeah,
Aldous Hodge. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, I was like, dang. I was like, yeah, he could have been T'Challa.
He could have been a good T'Challa. Yeah. Yeah, he's believable, man. He's big too. Like, he'd be perfect. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. Like, that was a thing too. Like, people had all these weird reactions to the idea of recasting T'Challa because Chadwick Boseman died, but Chadwick Boseman's family even was like, let the character live on.
Yep.
Because like, you know how many Superman actors died? One of them committed suicide. And they didn't just stop making Superman movies. Like, they, you know what I mean? They just recast the role, and people usually would pay homage to the actors who passed, or they would pay homage by using elements of their portrayal or not using elements of their portrayal in their own portrayals of the character. So I don't understand why it's so different when it comes to T'Challa, who the people saying all this shit didn't even know that this character existed until the movie came out. Like, it's kind of annoying. It's the same people on Twitter that say, put everything in our comics, but then don't buy a single fucking comic. Like, it's frustrating. It's like, yo, like, let us have our characters. T'Challa's like one of the biggest ones that, you know, black comic book fans have. Not that we need the characters to be black for us to enjoy them, but like when you're talking about diversity of characters, T'Challa's one of the biggest ones. He's richer than Iron Man. He's one of the richest characters in Marvel Comics. He's got some of the highest tech in the MCU and in the in general the Marvel universe. He's one of those characters who's got feats a mile fucking long of all the crazy shit he's done. He can outfight Wolverine. He can, you know, he can stand up to the Hulk. He's not a punk. He's definitely one of those like heavy hitters who needs to be part of the Marvel universe. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna make sure he take his place. And it's like, if you do that, then you still need to do the story where he comes back from the realm of the dead and he has necromancer powers as well, and bring in the thrice the thrice blessed armor. Like, do all that shit that would make him, you know, still keep his stature as one of the higher up characters, because he's a dope ass character that has a lot of meaning to a lot of people, not just the folks who only recently discovered that he existed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I dig the idea of them recasting him. I don't see any problems with it. I mean, it's acting, you know. It's not like T'Challa died until, you know, Wakanda Forever. It's not like he died. It was the actor died. But
it was the actor. Yeah.
But what did you think about Doctor Strange 2?
I liked it. I liked it better than the first one. I know that.
Really?
Much. Yeah.
Wow.
The only thing I didn't like about this second one was that I didn't like how they had Wanda take out
everybody.
Yeah, I had the biggest issue with that, but I did like it better than the first. The first Doctor Strange movie, like, I didn't hate it, but I remember seeing it. I was like, okay, I don't want my money back, but
damn, really? What? Wow. Why you say that?
Can I tell you why? Okay, so I love the cartoon that came out of Doctor Strange.
Oh, the live the movie. Yeah, that was great. It was great.
Yeah, and it was some things that I just like. Okay, one of the things, I felt he was too likable and too much like Tony Stark when they were showing him before he got his powers.
Oh, gotcha.
And I didn't feel like there was a big enough redemption of when he finally became like the Sorcerer Doctor Strange. That was mainly my issues with the movie, but like, other than that, like, again, I didn't want my money back. I maybe wanted a discount. It was like it's definitely not up there where it's like, oh, this is one of the worst Marvel movies, but I just thought I enjoyed one more than the first one.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I dug the first one. The first one, like, it kind of solidified all the things that I always dug about the character, because I was not a fan of him in the comics. Like, I liked when he showed up because I knew what he could do and I knew who he was, and I had a handful of comics with Doctor Strange in them back in the day, but like, he was never like one of my top guys. And then I watched the movie and I was like, damn, okay. So, and then he showed when he popped back up in Infinity War and stuff, I was like, okay, I like him even more now. Like, he's pretty dope.
Like, when he showed up in that, I did like him a lot in that. I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, yeah,
he's no joke. And like, I do agree that he was very similar to Tony Stark. He was just arrogant and just, you know, another arrogant white dude in a suit, you know, with money and stuff. It was like, oh, come on, guys. But then I felt like later, as the movie progressed, they started to get into more about how he's aware of his behavior, and he's aware that these character traits are what hold him back. And you start seeing him kind of shed some of that stuff and become more I don't know, like, just humble in a lot of ways, and like it worked. Even the fact that he was willing to like sacrifice himself a billion times to make the bargain with Dormammu. Like, it's a big difference from the guy in the beginning who only wanted to do shit that would give him, extra, props or extra clout, for his accomplishments, essentially. So, yeah, I dug that. And, like, for me, it was, like, more so the fact that they introduced the world that he's in, that part of the Marvel Universe where you're seeing dimensions and multiverses and astral projection and like the dark realm and the this and all that shit that you never saw in the movies beforehand. That's my favorite part of the Marvel Universe. So like when they started showing, like when she touched his forehead and he just started going through all the existence, I was like, what the fuck? This it blew my mind because I'm like, finally they stopped with the street level and the aliens and they were like, yo, there's this other set of stuff that you gotta pay attention to, cosmic and supernatural. But yeah, the second one was good to me. Wanda was super ridiculously powerful, but she is pretty damn powerful, just not in the comics. They don't use it like that. It's like she was just Jesus. She like nothing could stop her. But I did like that as she's becoming more essentially consumed by the Darkhold, she was more like a horror movie villain and less like the character that we met in Age of Ultron. You know what I mean? Like there was so much growth as far as her character goes. And I loved the fact that Doctor Strange was using different skill sets that we didn't know he could do, like that the music note fight. I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Oh yeah,
like this was insane. I would have never in my life thought that would have been a thing, and it was great. What I didn't like about the movie was that characters who aren't on his level had to tell him that he could do things that he could do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for the sake of the story, he didn't think about it, and then someone else, Christine, would be like, you do this, right. And then he's like, oh yeah, I do this, and it's like, come on, dude. But like overall though, it was fun. I did like the little tease with the alternate universe versions of some of those characters, but yeah, I do agree that she shouldn't have been able to kill so many of them so fast.
Like, that was ridiculous, man.
She was murking
like
people.
They were there, they got you hyped, and it was like, oh,
yeah, all right. Womp womp. They were done. Yeah, that bugged me. But overall, though, it was a fun experience. Though it wasn't like it was definitely not a bad movie, and a lot of people dissed the shit out of that movie too.
Yeah, I was just about to say that was another one of those situations where, because like I never see movies like the Friday.
Yeah,
because we got plans usually every Friday. So like the best day for us to go to see the movies is Saturday. So even though I'll stay away from spoiler stuff, I'll see reviews, and they were trashing it. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And I came out of it like, man, nah. It's like I still like the movie. I'm like, nah, this is a pretty decent movie, man.
Yeah. People were way too hard on it.
And then too, I think a lot of people let like their expressiveness, like, because I'm an expressive person myself. Like, I get hyped, like, off of the smallest things. But I think a lot of people let that kind of drive their opinion a certain way. Like, they'll get really excited about something, but even if they kind of like it and they don't get that excited, it's almost like they instantly go to, instead of saying it was okay or it was just good, it wasn't great, it was bad, because it didn't give them the feeling that they got the last time that they seen either the first one or the movie before they watched. It's like it's like it's like there's levels to it.
Yep. I agree. Yeah, everything is not going to hit you the same way. It just can't. You know what I mean? It just can't. Right. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely an issue, because you hear that a lot on YouTube, man. A lot on YouTube.
Because people dissed Black Adam. I was like, man, Black Adam was dope. I'm sorry, that movie, the action scenes, it felt like a cartoon. It felt like cartoon, and I'm saying that in the best way possible. Like, I'm not saying that like it felt like, damn, like this is an action movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why people like hated it and was dissing it like that, man. I was like, y'all are crazy.
I think what happened with him, I know what happened with Black Adam is when they realized all the things The Rock did and was attempting to do to try to make his movie the movie, people just got fed up with him because he fucked up a lot of shit. You know, like he had us thinking that number one, he had us thinking that, you know, Henry Cavill was back out past the movie that he was, you know, just cameoing in. And then they announced it like he was. They shouldn't have announced anything. And this is my problem with The Rock. He talks too damn much. Like, dude, make your movie and shut the fuck up. Like, just make the movie. Let the movie speak for itself. He's like those people who play fighting games and talk so much shit, but they're not really that good. Like, he's that guy. And like, he was talking about he doesn't like Shazam. I was like, then why the fuck are you playing Black Adam? And then,
right, dude.
And then he said he wanted to separate Black Adam from Shazam. I'm like, but you can't because your origin is directly tied into Shazam. And you're literally...
He even had the wizard.
You're Shazam,
the wizard.
Yeah. And you're Shazam's arch nemesis, or like his one-time nemesis. So like, you can't just pretend like they even mention you in Shazam. So like, you could have played other characters. You could have been Lobo. You could have been Hank Henshaw. You could have been, you know, Parasite. You could have been a billion other people who are on par with Superman. But you chose Black Adam, and now you want to pretend like he's the most important guy in the DC universe. Talking about he wanted the whole DCU to be structured around him and Superman. And I'm like, no, nobody's going to agree to that because your character is kind of insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things, yeah.
And like, he didn't do his research enough to understand that. The fact that like he put these are the gripes I have with the movie because I know it's because of him. He put the Justice Society of America in there, but he had it whittled down to only 4 members. He also there was supposed to be a post-credits sequence at the end of the first Shazam where Hawkman and I think it was Dr. Fate show up to recruit Shazam to the Justice Society, which would have been fucking dope, right? It would have been awesome. Instead, they ended up putting it in the second movie, but they had Harcourt and the other guy, Economist from Peacemaker. They went and they did it. But it would have been dope if he was part of that team, and then when Black Adam shows up, you have a fight between Shazam and Black Adam, and he would know who the character is because it was explained. But nope, The Rock fucked it up. Another thing is the prince that enslaved Black Adam was one of Hawkman's past lives in the comics. So it would have been dope if they had made that connection. So Hawkman's reaction to all of this, because there's a whole book, it's called Dark Reign. It was a whole arc where most of this stuff happened in the comics, but there was a reason why Hawkman was so against Black Adam, and it's because he dealt with Black Adam before. So in the movie, they have no history, so it's like Hawkman's just a dick just because he's a dick. You know what I mean? Like, it would have made sense if he had that history. You know what I mean? And this is what I mean, again, with the uncreative people trying to play creatives. Like, not only was this shit already written out for you, but you actively opted to ignore it in favor of a less interesting premise. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
And dude, that's one of the reasons why I love Mario so much. And I think why a lot of people like the movie. Like, dude, like, no spoilers, but like, there was 2 moments in Mario where they literally made it feel like you were holding a controller.
Yeah.
Like, no joke. Like, the screen turns
sideways.
Sideways, and it's like, yo, these people love. Not only do they love Mario, they're letting the audience know that they love this shit, man. And I dug it. I was like, dude. Like, I'm like, that's how it should be done, man. Like, that was just all the little nuggets in that movie. It was like, they're doing it right, man. This is cool.
I agree.
And it's just, when you got people who love the material, you know that they're gonna respect the material, man. But instead, you know how many interviews you get? Oh yeah, well we wanna to tone it down. We want to.
Yeah,
like,
man.
I can only imagine, like, yeah, when he eats the mushrooms, he's not gonna get bigger. He's gonna get healthier.
Exactly. Yeah, they did everything, man. It's crazy. You know, like even the fact that they put the blue mushroom in there, and the blue mushroom is not one of the classic mushroom power ups from back in the day. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a newer one. I remember because my wife, she loves those. Excuse me, she loves like new Super Mario Brothers and all that stuff. And I got to see all that and play it. And then I'm like, oh shit, I turned into a giant? Like, where did this come from? Because when I played, we didn't have that kind of shit. You know, my last big Mario game was 64. And I'm like, we didn't have, I don't remember us turning into giants in that game. Maybe you did in some scene, but I don't remember that being a regular thing. And it definitely wasn't in the classic Mario games either. So, yeah, you could tell, like, they knew their stuff. Or, like, details like changing what's her name's costume when she gets the fire flower. That was pretty cool too. Like there were a lot of cool details there. Or the fact that they made the princess hardcore like she was in the manga and not the damsel in distress like she was in some of the games. It's like they actually researched.
You want to know what's funny? Like, and it goes like again to YouTube when like sometimes there's people that don't know what they're talking about. So when he gets that cat power up, Grace Randolph did a video.
Oh my God,
like,
Grace Randolph!
You're in the furries, and like it was people on her Twitter even showing her like covers of Mario games where he's in the same cat yellow
suit.
Cat
yeah.
Suit.
Like dude's been turning into animals since what Mario 3 back in the day.
Mario 3. Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? This is what I'm saying. Like they don't know, but they got the loudest voice because now they have a platform to say whatever the fuck they want to say, even if it's the dumbest shit possible. And it's frustrating that there's no integrity. Like, just do the research. It's fun. You love this stuff anyway. Do a little bit more research. Every time I have to research something for a video and it's in this realm, I find things that I love. I already love the source material, but then I find more that makes me love it even more, you know, or at least gives me something else to enjoy. And I'm like, damn, this is awesome. Like, I was a mild Transformers fan when the first movies came out, the Michael Bay movies came out. I was a mild Transformers fan. I liked the TV show to a point. I knew characters. The first movie from from '86, that was the pinnacle for me. So like my goal when I was collecting was only to get the characters that were in the movie, everybody that's in the movie, which is like I'm almost there right now. I'm missing Sharkticons, I'm missing the Quintesson, and I don't have another Junkion. I need someone for Wreck-Gar to ride, or vice versa. But I have like everybody else. I think I have every character that was in the film. I don't have all of Blaster's tapes, but I have everybody else.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And like when Siege came out, like I was collecting since when MP1. That was the first big Transformer thing that I collected that I got into. And Agent O was the nerd. He was the Transformers nerd at the time. So like he was educating me on all these characters, who the Fallen was, who Nemesis Prime was, because I had never heard of these characters because I only watched the old G1 cartoon, you know? And it was like dope to come into a world that I only have like a certain amount of knowledge on, and then all these other possibilities are now being explored in these other stories. And you know, you get to be a part of it. You get to take that in. Yep. You're meeting new characters, like the fucking Wreckers.
And that's how it was, honestly, with my brother. Like, my brother's like 9 years older than me. So a lot of the stuff that he experienced, it was kind of like not really around that much anymore. Like when I started watching cartoons and stuff. So I like G.I. Joe from my brother. I like Transformers because of my brother, and Voltron.
Oh yeah.
Those three things. Like, my dad loves telling a story. He always tells the story, man. Like, every once in a while, he'll bring up the fact that, like, my brother, I guess, like, back then, they had a Voltron set where the legs and stuff on it was die cast. And
I have it.
I guess it's
the whole thing is die cast. Yep.
Yeah. And so, like, when I was a kid, I used to ask my dad for it, and he'd be like, sorry, because they don't make it no more, because they did. By the time that, like, I was old enough, because my brother would always talk about it, he's like, they don't make it no more. Now they finally making or Voltron stuff again, but that's why I was happy when the new Voltron cartoon came out. They made the new Lions, and then they made the classic Lions. Yeah. And I ended up getting that, man, because I was like, dude, my brother made me feel so jealous having that thing, man. Man, like, dude, this is crazy.
That Voltron series is another one, because I grew up watching Voltron. I watched it when it was Go Lion, the Japanese version, and then I watched the American version, and, like, the Japanese version is violent as fuck, but it was fun. Yeah. And then watching the American version where they toned things down and they added other 2 other shows into the mix, you ended up with a cool, a different vibe, and I love it. But then when they did the one on Netflix where they pay homage to all those things, and then they went further with all these characters, and, like, they made their mission and their exploits so just, like, epic. You know what I mean? Like, the scale just kept on increasing. I just was like, wow. And then if you listen to people online dissing the whole show because Shiro was gay, oh man, it's doing it again. Hopefully it pops back up. There we go.
There we go.
It's cool. We're getting towards the end. It's all right. But now with the new show, it was awesome. Everything was epic. And then you listen to people online dissing the whole show simply because Shiro was gay. And I was like,
yeah, that's the biggest take. I'm like that's everything dope in that. Like, I mean, like, and I get like, if you want to have an issue with that, but, like, it ruins the whole thing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's it for you. Like, that's it. It's like it's like 2 5-second scenes that establish that he's gay, and then the follow up with the fact that he's gay. Everything else is, dude was a badass. He was a good leader. He taught Keith what it means to be a good leader. He never even, like, approached Keith like, hey, dude, I like dudes. Like, they didn't even play it like that. And, like, people somehow hated him, and then they hated the whole series because of that. And I'm like, guys, really? You missed all that epicness throughout the whole thing. You missed everything. This is what I'm saying. It's like you have the wrong voices constantly being amplified, and they miss the point. They keep missing the point. That shit was legendary, man. They did a great job explaining to you, like, this is what these explorers, like, trained to do. This is what they never knew they were actually going to be in a situation as big as this. And this is how they rose to the occasion to be able to complete their mission and save everything. I don't know. That shit blew me away. I was like, wow. Because, like, I wasn't expecting it to get that crazy. But, yeah, again, it's the people who love the source material and know how to present it in a way that it elevates the source material, and it also elevates the current product or project. Versus people who only understand, like, checking off boxes because now they're trying to, like, what's the word? Adopt it in a way that fits today's sensibilities, It's stupid. It's kind of, it's annoying, and it's like, if that's what you're going to do, take them off the product or project. Have somebody else do it that actually understands more nuanced takes on all this information, because, like, they'll do it right. The folks who are going to try to neuter it, they're going to fuck it all up, and it's going to lose something in that process. What'd you think? Did you see Puss in Boots: The Last Wish?
No, I need to.
Yeah, dude.
I've heard so many good things about it, and when you mentioned that, I was like, I was telling my wife, I was like, he said it was good too. I'm like, it's gotta be. I was like, it's gotta be. I'm like, dude, that's crazy. Like, so, because I just heard so many people talking about, people at my job was talking about it. So I was like, all right, I got to check this out,
dude.
because it's on Peacock, and we
I
got
think
that.
so.
So
Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah,
better than, to me. It's better than everything else that came before it as far as Shrek goes. Like you could ignore everything else and just watch that, and it's man, it stands alone really well. But having understanding that he came from Shrek, it's kind of like, wow, why wasn't the all those films about him?
yeah,
Because he's so much better than,
yeah,
I don't know, that team just, they blew Shrek and the whole everything related to Shrek out of the box with this movie. Like the themes of the film could apply to a lot of heroes if done right. You know what I mean? Like when a hero,
yeah.
when you give a hero humanity, and then you explore their humanity and their what's the word, mortality, because that's pretty much the point of the film.
Yeah.
It just, oh my god, I'm not even going to go into more. Just, you should check that out for real.
All right. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that.
What about did you see John Wick 4?
No, not
Oh,
yet.
really? I thought you would have
I know,
definitely
I
seen
know.
that one.
Dude, I know, and I've seen all of them like pretty much right away. But like sometimes I gotta find certain people to watch stuff with. My wife, she's particular. We like a lot of the same things, and she likes the John Wick movies, but
Yeah.
like a lot of the time she's not into violence and
Yeah.
horror stuff. Like, you know, she can't always take it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, so because that's why, like, for a little bit, I would see anything that she couldn't see. I would see with my buddy Mitch, I work with.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's what I thought. So my wife and I, one date night, we went to see Bullet Train, and this was my wife's idea. She didn't know I knew anything about the movie, but she didn't tell me what we were going to see. And so we get to the theater, and it's Bullet Train. I'm like, oh shit, are you sure you want to watch this? And she's like, yeah, I want to watch it. So we're watching it, and stuff is happening, and I'm covering her eyes, and she's like, stop. And I'm like, but you don't normally like this kind of stuff. And she was into it. So I was like, okay, cool.
Oh,
I
okay.
guess if the situation is right, like if it's presented a certain way, it'll work. But the John Wick 4 is not as gory as 3. Like 3 had that knife scene,
Oh, okay.
you remember, with the knife coming to the
Yeah.
dude's eye and all that. It never gets
Yeah.
that bad. It's kind of more, how do I put, it's like, think of your old, like, Shoot 'em Up. Do you remember that movie with Clive Owen?
Yeah.
Think Shoot 'em Up on steroids. Like no,
Okay,
think Shoot 'em
okay.
Up on cocaine. Like it's like that. Like you it's a lot of shooting. It's a lot of inventive camera angles with the shootouts and stuff, but not a whole lot of that up close gore. You know, watching people get stabbed, that sort of thing. Like, things happen, people get killed, but it's not presented in that kind of way. But
Okay.
yeah, I think you'll dig it. You'll dig it. Trust me. It does.
I know I like it, man. I like all the John Wick movies, man. I already know.
Yeah, they did a great
I
job.
already know.
They did a great job with it. What did you think of in Wakanda Forever, right? What did you think about Namor? Or Namor, as he was called in the film.
I'm gonna be honest. I wish they would have cast somebody different.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like the dude that played him, man.
What?
I didn't.
Wow.
I didn't. I it was something about him. Like, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it, man.
I dug the fact. I dug two things. These are two things, and this is the comic book dork in me, and then this is also the fact that it's like the Latino portion of me as well, seeing them do what they did with this character. So for a long time, I always thought Namor was like Asian or something, because in the comics, that's kind of the way they draw him.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah.
When they did they cast Tenoch Huerta as Namor, I was like, damn, this kind of works, because dude looks kind of unassuming, but he looks kind of tough. And then when he's just chatting with people, he doesn't seem like he's a scary individual. But then he's like, something about him, he just turn on that scariness. Like he just go from being soft to being serious as hell, and you're like, shit, like I kind of believe what he's saying. And I think it works because, like, in the comics and in the cartoons, Namor is just loud and he's just a dick, and he doesn't really feel like a person. He feels like a caricature or like an archetype, you know, like an NPC with that stock personality. This made him feel like, once you see what he went through and what he grew up understanding and feeling, you're like, I get why he hates people. I would hate people too, for these exact reasons. You know what I mean? Like, if this is what you saw when you went back with your, you know, to where your mom had all these great stories about, and then you see slavery and you see people being tortured and you just see like a shitty representation of life, it's like, then these people suck, man. They don't deserve to be here. Like, you know what I mean? And I get it. Whereas in the comics, it's just he hates people on land because we pollute the oceans. Like, that's it. And it's like, everybody doesn't really do that. I mean, there's people that do, but like, that's not even everybody. And he hates everyone. Yeah. So I dug that. And then also there's the fact that, okay, so now that he's tied into the Aztecs, what happens when we get our Fantastic Four? Do you think that they're going to do you know how Namor has this fixation on Sue Storm? So do you think? Do you think they're gonna actually? Are they actually gonna do that? Because that would be amazing if they do that, where he shows.
It would be, but I don't know if they will though.
They probably won't, but it would be amazing if they did. This is why I said this is me being a dork.
Yeah, if they did do that, yes. That yeah, it would. But yeah, I feel like they're probably not going to. It would be cool if they do it though.
Yeah, because he's a good actor.
Because another reason why, speaking of this, like why I wanted T'Challa recast is because I still want to see
that fight
T'Challa
with them
and Storm together.
Yeah. See, like, I'm one of the
power couple right there, man.
True, but I'm one of the few people who didn't like that. I thought it was generic. I'm like, oh, well, of course you took the two Africans and you put them together. You know what I mean? Like, you couldn't have done anything else. She doesn't even hang out in Africa. She lives in the U.S. and somehow you tied them together because they're the two Africans. So of course they know each other, and of course they were in love, and all this other bullshit. Like, I just felt like it was too easy. There should have been some other. Like, I prefer what they were doing in the film with Nakia. Because, like, all I know of Nakia is her being somewhat of a villain. So for them to take this character and be like, oh, they have ties, and, like, let's just make her... She formerly was a spy, so she has that training. So sometimes they use her to do things that would need someone with espionage-type skills. And her relationship with T'Challa is kind of... It's nuanced because they've known each other for their whole lives and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I dig that. I prefer that, where it's not someone who also is high up there. I always dug Storm and Forge. Unfortunately, the writers just went out of their way to fuck that up for them, and it was super tragic that, like, they were pretty perfect, but then, like, shit would happen and always somehow separate them. But I like when the relationship is more of a I don't like when it's convenient. You know what I mean? Like, super convenient.
I got you.
Because like if you notice, like, with the couples that seem to stand the test of time, like Scott and Jean, and Peter Parker and Mary Jane, like, they went through shit in order to be a couple, and then once they become a couple, they still go through shit that tests them, and then they still remain a couple. You know what I mean? So it's like, you kind of see both sides working to make sure that they maintain what they got, which that's kind of realistic. You know what I mean? That's how it works. You get married. People think marriage is like, you do it and everything's hunky-dory. I'm like, it's not always like that. You got to work. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the simplest, most... It can be if you pick someone you actually like and then you stick with them, or you better than that, you love them, you know, then it's not as hard.
Yeah.
But like if you pick someone because you know she had a fat ass, and then you were like, yo, I'm gonna wife that, but you didn't actually think about all the other pieces of her being your wife and you being the husband, you're gonna have problems. And I know a lot of people who that's the way that they do things, and it's like, yeah, get ready for a world of hurt, because that's the way it's gonna be. Because you didn't like bolt down the important factors, you know what I mean, before you chose to make that your wife.
You didn't go to the laboratory on that one.
Yeah, exactly, right. But you know, it's that, and that's also like back to the Wolverine thing. That's why I hate this weird, creepy narrative of like, let Wolverine take Jean from Scott. Like, if Scott's a dude, he's a man, he's like about his business, why would he let some other man just take his wife? Like, and then the wife also, why would she be like, yeah, go ahead?
and to make him not, and to also, like, not only that, but just to make Scott in the films like weak, like he didn't talk much. Like, for him to be who he is, they didn't even let him really talk much, man, which was weird, man.
Or command. He didn't command anything. Yeah, he needed to be in charge, and you needed to feel it. Like, they never really had a moment where everybody listened to him except Wolverine. And then when Wolverine tried to, you know, kind of push up and try to, you know, question dude's authority, he puts him in his place. You need that moment, and they never did it, which sucks.
They never did it, right?
Which really sucks. We never got that. And there's been like, what, 5 or 6 X-Men movies? I'm like, come on, guys. We could have gotten that at least once. Yeah.
And in none of the movies, even the younger Cyclops, the dude that played the younger version of him, even then, they still kind of kept him the same way. I'm like, dude, this is the future leader of the team. Like,
exactly.
Show some aspects of his character. It's just been done so poorly, man. Like, it's just been done very, very poorly.
Oh yeah. But I'm trying to think of other. Oh, I like Betsy and Warren, Psylocke and Archangel. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
That's pretty cool, because like both of them have to fight to make sure that this thing works, because he's fighting urges to be a freaking murderer, and she's fighting.
Right.
She's trying to fight his urges to be a murderer, to keep him on the straight and narrow, you know, and like, it's interesting. It's a good one. I like Colossus and what's her face, Kitty. That's a cool relationship too, because Colossus is this quiet, kind of peaceful giant, and then you have Kitty, who's like the little sister of the team. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool to see them grow up, and then she grows up, she becomes a woman, she becomes more assertive, and the whole time she's got the giant backing her up. Like, that's cool. But then there's, you know, his family issues fuck up their relationship. So, you know, it keeps it interesting. Like, X-Men was it was like my religion growing up, man. Like, it's like
it's
one of the books, the only books that I was like subscribed to back in the day, when, you know, they had to mail all that to your house, and you had to, it was like risky, because sometimes the shit wouldn't come. You had to mail your your payment to them. I think I was doing it through Mile High Comics or something like that.
And so, like, do you remember Borders Bookstore?
Oh yeah.
So that X-Men used to be the only comic book that I used to get as a kid. Like, my mom, she would always take me, because she reads a lot and whatnot. So we would always go to Borders, and they would have that rack, like the corner of the store, that one that like spins.
Yeah.
I would pick up just random X-Men comics all the time from there, all the time.
It's quality. Yeah, that's how it was for me. X-Men was like the big book that I like I said, my mom, she did the subscription thing for me through Mile High Comics. And then there was like Spider-Man and Ghost Rider. I used to go to the corner store and get them whenever they had them. But X-Men was like, I didn't miss anything. The whole like 91, you know, Jim Lee's X-Men with the gatefold cover. That whole like 1 through 13, I think he only drew like up to, I think, 11, and then 12 and 13 somebody else took over. That was kind of imitating his style. I had all of those single issues. I had the first issue like all 3 times because you remember how it was like the cover was a long, like a long
Yeah.
picture that was split into multiple parts. I had all the parts. I bought that book so many times, and yeah, I was all about it, man. Like it was just one of those books. And then when I met Jim Lee, it made it even like, yo, I gotta finish this. I have to finish this whole run. I gotta go back and see the stuff he did the years before. Like, yeah, man, I was a Jim Lee fan for life.
Dude, that's why I'm so hard on the X-Men films, man.
Me too. Me too, because like how
I
like
can't stand them.
yeah, me too. I'm like, how did you get that from these books? Like, how did you miss the like Rogue? I had a crush on Rogue growing up. Like, my crush on Rogue coincided with me realizing girls were even a thing. So I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, little boy growing up, you hit puberty, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, like girls. And then you listen, like reading what she's saying, and then when the cartoon came out and you hear that voice, I'm like, damn, man, do these girls exist? Like, really? Yeah, she was dope. And then like seeing Gambit chase her, I'm like, yo, I'd do the same thing. Even if it killed me, I'd probably do the same exact thing. And then you watch the movies and they make Rogue Jubilee essentially, and they make her all like docile and like none of the personality and nothing. I'm like, what are you doing? This is a character that we've been waiting to see. She's got so much personality, and you downplay all that. Like, what are you doing?
Like, it was barely. I can't think of like many things that they did even like kind of right in the X-Men movies.
I know, right?
and then the more X-Men movies came out, they started to throw certain things in there, but it was like too little, too late.
I agree.
We never, in none of the movies, never showcased how the humans felt about mutants. It was like it was talked about, but there wasn't really many scenes of like I remember like in the cartoon, for example, when Jubilee accidentally broke the arcade because she used her powers by mistake.
Yeah.
And they kicked her out. And they showing like, you know, like you got to get out of here. Like there's none of that. Like it show that dynamic enough, man. I'm like, this is crazy, man. Like, this is not X-Men.
They kind of, I'll give them this though, in the third film, which is the one all the internet hates the most, the third film has, the most nods to the original series.
Yeah.
It had like when you think about X-Men, right? And I every time I tell people this, they crack up because then they're like, shit, you're right. Because it's on a like grand scale, big picture. In the X-Men comics, the best books were like, they're at the school, drama happens at the school, and then they see something on TV that involves mutants as a whole. So then it cuts to what mutant is representing mutants at this government something or other. And then you find out that there's some big thing that's going to affect all the mutants. And then the bad guys catch on to it. And Mystique is somewhere in the mix of all this. And so now the X-Men have to mobilize to deal with something, or at least to be seen or something. And then the shit hits the fan. Ultimately, what you end up with is when the X-Men get in the jet and get to wherever they got to go, all hell breaks loose. There's so much damage, and there's like all this drama, and there's all this craziness, and there's mutants fighting mutants to save people. And then, you know, somebody might get killed or injured, but, you know, they come to some type of conclusion. They save the day. They go back to the school, and they continue doing the stuff they do at the school. That was literally the framework of the third movie, which the other movies didn't have.
Right.
The third movie was fucking batshit insane with all the killing off Professor X, and like it was like, what are you doing? Why did you choose to do this now? But like still, it had like those bullet points that you need for an X-Men film, you know, like the fact that you had Storm finally being a leader because Cyclops is nowhere to be found. The fact that like Wolverine wasn't listening to the leader and he went off and did his own thing, and then the leader came along with him to be like, yo, no, we do this as a team. And then he's kind of like, fuck, I can't really argue with you because he can't beat Storm. I mean, he could sneak up on her and kill her, but if they were fighting and she's looking at him, he doesn't stand a chance. I mean, I don't care who, he'll survive it, but he can't get to her. That's what I'm saying. and he shouldn't be trying to kill her because they're on the same side. You know what I mean? Like they're cool with each other. But there were a lot of moments where you were like, this is kind of like what Wolverine does. Like when he snuck off to that weird Woodstock type shit going on in the forest with Magneto and his guys, and he's fighting all those evil. They're not really evil, but these like bad mutants, I guess. And he fights the one dude who had Spike's powers, who was throwing bones at him and shit. And like that, there was like a Wolverine. That's like a trademark Wolverine moment, you know, like him running around, climbing up in the trees and stuff. And then freaking Magneto shows up and is like, "Yeah, we're gonna put an end to all that. You need to stop. Like you sit down over here. We're gonna do what we're gonna do. Back up, all right." Like that was legit. Like that's an X-Men moment. Or like when Magneto stopped, when he rescues, or he attempted to rescue Mystique. And he gets Juggernaut out of the, the containment unit or whatever, and he's like he's like doing those simple gestures, and then he's like flipping trucks over and stuff. Like that felt like a Magneto moment. If anything,
it felt like
Magneto was the one piece of all of those movies that they got right. I never understood how he could be as young as he appeared in the books if he's as old as he's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, they had all these weird excuses, like his body feeds off of Earth's magnetic field, and that keeps him young. And I'm like, I guess you could do that. It just feels weird. Yeah. So seeing him be older, and then seeing Professor X be older as well, it's kind of like, okay, that makes sense. But Magneto was perfect. Remember when they're marching after he moved the bridge to Alcatraz Island? He walks past this family in the car, and the woman like locks the door, and he just laughs at her. He just looks at her and just laughs and walks by. I'm like, those moments are the stuff that needed to be in the rest of the series. You know what I mean? Like you needed more of that kind of stuff. And then Beast. Beast was perfect. Beast was probably the best character, hands down. He was the best of all the characters in that series. Because he sounded exactly like what I would imagine. It was weird seeing him in a suit, but at the same time, it is weird when you've seen him in a suit in the comics, you know? Like, he was perfect. I was like, wow, okay. But yeah, most everything else was just like, wow, this was ridiculous. They missed a lot of points.
I remember being so disappointed, like, as I saw it with my cousins, and we used to see like everything together. Yeah. And we walked out of that, and I was like, I'm pissed off.
Yeah, I was too. When I first saw it, I hated it, and then I watched it. We were at we went to visit. It was years later. I think my wife and I were married by now, and we went to visit her mom in Minneapolis, and it was on, and I didn't remember a bunch of these scenes, and I'm watching, and I'm like, damn, this doesn't look too bad. I need to rewatch this movie. And it was like, when I watch it and I think about it in the context of how much did they get right from the way X-Men is typically, done, then I liked it more, because I was like, the X-Men used their powers. There was like ridiculous damage when they fought. There were like, none of the one-liners weren't as bad as they were in the first couple movies. There were a lot of battles. Like when they destroy that house in the scene that Professor X dies in, I was just like, wow, like they destroyed so much shit. Or the fact that who else had a cool... Oh, the whole intro sequence with Angel.
Yes.
I was like, damn, like they got you from the beginning. I kind of was like, holy shit, the kid's filing his wings off. What the fuck?
That was
like there's powerful shit. Like that was the thing. Like in I think it was either the first one or the second movie. Was it the second movie where they show Magneto being pulled away? I think that was the first movie, right? Yeah, the second movie had
the first one.
Yeah, the second one had Nightcrawler in the beginning. When they showed Magneto being pulled from his family, and he's like magnetically holding on to the gate, and like it was so dramatic. It was more powerful than anything else in the film. I was like, couldn't we get more of that? You know what I mean? Like it always felt like they would get a piece of things right. Like the second X-Men movie, the only thing to me they got right was Nightcrawler in the beginning, and he was being controlled.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Yep. I was just about to say that. That was the best thing in that one.
Yeah.
That was because I was like, that actually got me like, okay, is this one going to be good?
I know. Womp womp. Yeah. Womp womp womp. From there, it was like, woof. Yeah. But yeah, man, it's weird. Like, I've learned over the years that, like, when you're watching different types of films, there's ways, I shouldn't say ways to look at it, but there are aspects of these films, just like with video games. I've noticed, like, some of the worst games have really good soundtracks, or like some of the worst games have really good moments in the game, like where they use a different engine and that part works really well. You know, like back in the day,
yep,
we used to get a lot of games that had like a driving section, a shooting section, a fighting section, you know? Kind of like what Uncharted does all those things right. But like back in the day, some of them, one of those things would be better than the others. And sometimes you could just have fun playing that one part of the game, you know, save at that point so you could keep playing that part. But like, you know, if you do it like that, like say you can't trade and that's how I discovered this, is like I couldn't trade the game in, nobody wanted to buy the game from me, or I couldn't trade it because no one wanted to trade me for the game, so I just played it because I had it, and then I'm like, oh, this part is actually not too bad. The rest of it sucks, but you know, this is not so bad, so I'll play this part. The same goes for these movies. There's some movies that are just overall they're garbage, but then like there'll be a piece of the movie that is well done where it's like this is you know, kind of in the spirit of what it was supposed to be, especially like no, go ahead
because it almost makes it feel like it's another director in
exactly like in did you see Dark Phoenix, right? You remember the sequence, there's like a fight scene towards the end when they reveal the aliens to everybody and Magneto shows up in the train to rescue everybody and he's doing all this cool shit with the debris and stuff, and everybody's doing cool stuff with their powers, and I'm like, why couldn't the rest of the movie be like this?
And that's exactly what I said in that moment too.
Yeah, like where Cyclops was doing cool stuff.
Thing couldn't do that. Yeah.
I was like, wow, you guys totally forgot. Like, and then you think about Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse, and that movie was terrible. And it's like the same people worked on both movies, and somehow they missed the point. Like, I don't know, it's just weird, but like there's moments where it was like, oh, that's cool. I wouldn't buy the movie, but I'm saying like if I caught it on TV or something, well, I don't really watch TV, but like if I did and it was on and I saw it, I'd be like, that part's kind of cool, but like, you know, you'd be let down by everything else. But because like I remember back in the day, I mean, I know times were different, you know, but I remember in the 90s coming across movies on television in the middle of the film and you see something happen that catches your interest and then you watch the rest of the movie and you're like, damn, that was awesome, now I gotta find the whole movie. And like we don't have that much anymore because everything is so instantly accessible. You can just go to Netflix or you can go to your favorite, you know, site on the high seas to watch whatever and you can get to see the whole thing. And you don't really get to see the movie like somewhat out of context without somebody's opinion kind of muddying the waters, because everything is overhyped. Everything has, you know, I'm a big fan of. Everybody's a giant fan of every fucking thing that ever comes out, has ever been done. And it's like, come on, guys. Like, come on.
Because you know, and that's how a lot of collectors justify buying new figures is, oh man, I love this. You never heard them talk about it before.
Yep.
But I'm a huge fan of this thing, so I had to get the whole wave. I had to get the whole, you know what I mean?
I'm a completist.
All right. It's like, listen, man, there's things that I'm a fan of too, but I don't own the figure if it don't look good.
Exactly. Like, especially, and then if you know, like if someone else has pointed out to you that it's bad, it's poorly done, it's like, you know, now you got to use your own, you know, discretion and decide either you're going to, you know, ignore that and buy it anyway, or you're going to wait for the better figure to be made. But yeah, people will find ways to justify that kind of nonsense all the time.
Yep.
It's crazy. But I guess we're about at the 3 hour mark. Man, I wish I could do this for 5 hours or something. We're gonna have to do this again because this it's been fun and it's weird that it's taken this long. Again, I'm sorry it took so long. I've been wanting to chat up with you about movies and stuff for a minute because like a long time ago, I remember you telling me you are a big movie person, and I was like, there's not too many people who really like. They say they're big movie people, but they don't know the actors, they don't understand plot structure and like the actual 3-act structure to a film versus the non-linear structure to a film and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of people who don't get it, and so like we'll have conversations and I can tell they don't get it, and I'm just like, man, I don't want to try to like spend the whole thing educating people, but
because like there's movies that, and I was just talking to this I was talking to my wife about it and somebody at work. I was like one of the I was talking about Mario. I was like, one of the things I liked about Mario is that they knew how to end that movie. The climax, like normally like especially with animated stuff, the beginning of the movie would be real like cute and stuff. It's like, okay, I'm enjoying this. Middle of the movie is okay. It's like towards the end, like that last act, it's like, okay, I can't wrap it up because I'm kind of done. Like a lot of the times they don't know how to like, and it could be the same with live action movies too. The beginning, it's like, okay, you got me. The middle, all right. Towards the end, and that third act, that's like the make or break.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm in a situation where I'm like, okay, now it's time to like wrap it up, that's you kind of failed at that point, man. It's like you had me, but
yeah, you should never be looking at your watch. What you want is that you want people to be a captive audience to your story, and if you lose them, then you end up with that. You know what I mean? If you lose them and you just keep on dragging, or you spend too much time on this one idea and you don't, you ignore other more interesting ideas, then you end up with a boring fucking middle of your film, and that leads into a boring end of the film unless you switch it up. That's like have you seen I Am Number 4?
Yes, yeah.
That movie's a perfect example of that. Like the middle of that movie is boring as shit, and then the third act is insanity. It's like Marvel versus Capcom the movie. I was like, what is this? I just happened to pick it up and watch it one day, and I was like, God, this movie is like, the beginning was cool, and then the middle of the movie was just like CW drama bullshit, and I was like, this is really whack. And then all of a sudden, what's her name showed up? What was her name? Seven, I think it was. She shows up, and you're like, I was like, who is this chick? And like, they're doing tag team super moves and shit, and I'm like, there's lasers and teleporting combos, and I'm like, what am I watching? Like, I almost
it woke you up.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was like, dang,
the freaking the dog turned into a monster. I was like, what? You remember that when the dog transformed?
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? And then they like, apparently the movie, even though there's a book series, the movie didn't make enough money to warrant a sequel. Even though like, I think it was a budget thing, if I'm being honest, based on the type of film it was, it felt like you see so much of the movies in the dark. Usually when the budget's low, they do that to hide the constraints. And like all of the money seemed to go towards the final third of the film. So like, it would have been dope if they made a sequel and they had more money, because then they could explore what their home planet was like and all the stuff that they didn't have the budget to do in the first film. But yeah, that was a movie where like, I was happy that I somehow stuck it out, because a couple times I was like, I'm about to be done with this shit. I'm about to turn this off. It was boring. I was like, this is whack.
And shoot, man, like the next time we do this too, we can even talk about music, man, because I've been having like just thoughts on just how music in general is made different. There's not many concept albums made anymore where it kind of, you listen to the whole thing to get like an actual story. Like they're not just songs, but like you don't skip around because there's like a story that they're telling to it.
One of the
So,
best of
yeah,
all time was Prince Paul, Prince Among Thieves. Have you ever heard that?
yes, yes, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my God!
yeah,
With Big Daddy Kane, with Grand Poobah, with
yeah,
Everlast, all these people playing different parts in it. Yo, like I showed that to this kid I worked with. He was all about whatever the flavor of the month shit was. You know, he was a
yep.
SoundCloud rapper, and he was doing that corny. And I was like, yo, listen. I was
Yeah,
like, 10 years from now, you want somebody to pick up your album, right? I was like, if you
yeah,
sound like everybody else, what is the incentive for anybody to continue to listen to you? You're telling the same
yep.
story, and you're even telling it in the same way that 5 billion other people are doing it. I was like,
Are doing it. Yep.
why don't you tell your story, but try to switch it up? Study other rappers from other time periods, not just the folks who are hot right now, because this is gonna fade. It's the flavor of the
Yep.
month. And so I gave him my copy of that album, and then he came back. He was like, "Yo," he was like, "Yo," he's like, he's like, "Yo, I didn't even think this was like possible. Like that was a movie." I was like, "Yes, this is what I'm
Yeah,
trying to tell
yeah,
you. You could
yes.
do it differently from other people. Add something to it. Don't just repeat that same cliche. I'm just telling the stories about where I grew up and blah blah." It's always the same shit with these guys, man. And it's like you could do
And I'm
more.
and I'm gonna tell you like another thing too, not to be on this because we could save this for
I
like
know we
another
need to.
time,
We
but
need
like
to. Yeah.
it's the idea of like albums and not just with hip hop, but just
In
even going
general.
like way back, like 70s, when you had a consistency of like who's going to produce an album,
Yep.
the album sounded consistent.
Yep.
Now, when you have a different producer on every
Every
song,
track. Yeah.
it kind of forces people not to listen from track one to track whatever. It's like it kind of forces you to skip around because there's no cohesiveness in the entire album.
Exactly.
Like you listen to Tribe Called Quest, Q-Tip did all their beats, and then Dilla would do some beats, but Dilla did beats that sounded like Q-Tip did. You couldn't
Exactly.
even tell unless you looked at the credits.
Exactly.
And it's like now you got an album where it's like Timberland did it, and it's like, oh, I could tell that's Timberland's beat.
Yeah.
And then you know what I mean? It's Just Blaze, oh, I could tell that's and
Yeah.
it's like, but it sounds like a mixtape rather than an album. It sounds like a mixtape.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Like-
because you have a lot of young folks that don't, like when you in most classical the classical sense, when you're studying art, it could be visual art, it could be even classical music, even dance. You have to go through the fundamentals, and you learn the fundamentals by studying the masters. You don't study the masters of the time. You study the masters of the medium, like how it was built to where we are now, from the beginning to now. And like they don't study anything past the last like 5 years. They only do what's hot right now. So they have no fundamentals. They can't play instruments. They don't read music. They don't understand structure of a song. All they understand is bars. And they don't even understand how to make the bars make sense. And it's frustrating because it's like there's people out there like Cannabis who can do all kinds of insane shit and if we're talking hip hop, like the what is it, the poet what is it, Laureate Infinite, I think is what it's called, where he wrote a bunch of bars that you could swap it around. He recorded them all separate, so people are putting it together and telling a story no matter how they swap it up, and they can put their own beats to it, and it's always going to tell a story. Always. There's still new versions of that song being made by fans because that's what the purpose of it. That's some next level type shit. Who would have thought that was even possible? But if you ask the, fucking Migos or one of these new cats, if they know anything about that or if they could even remotely do something like that, they have no idea that that's even an option. They're only doing what's hot right now. You got to study the masters. And when you study the masters, you understand the fundamentals and how some of these masters broke some of the traditions to kind of add something to that genre. You know what I mean? Or add something to the landscape. People don't think past the 5 minutes. Like, you got to think way ahead. Like, what will people say when they see your shit in the future? Will they be able to actually have a reason to look at your shit in the future? You know what I mean? Like, people don't think like that, and it's sad. It sucks. I've been.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, we need to do a music one. Yeah, we should.
Yeah, because because man, we could talk about this for like, like so because we work in teams at work, and we're all like in this in the department that I am, we're all in the department together, but we split off into teams. And me and my buddy, we talk about music because he also is he plays piano, he plays guitar. I think he plays everything.
I used to play the drums. That's it.
Yeah, and I got a buddy that played the drums, man. He crazy, but like yeah, we both got like that musical background, and we went even from talking about. I want us to talk about this too. How important album covers used to be.
Oh yeah.
Even in their most simplistic form.
Oh,
it didn't have to be nothing all crazy. Yeah. Just in the most simplistic form, that album told a story just by the cover of it.
Oh yeah.
Just by the cover of the album.
Yep. Yeah.
People, like, yeah, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that stuff gets taken for granted because people just don't think about it, you know?
Yep. And it's like now, because it's like now that we got everything, we stream everything, it's like it takes away that. I miss the aspect of like going to Kwanzaa Hut or FYE and buying an album, and while I'm listening to it,
looking
track
through the,
one, I'm looking, looking through the book, see who produced it, all of this other. I miss doing that. Now it's just you kind of got to find out on the internet. They don't even really tell you in the write-ups of stuff like who really. I mean, sometimes it's there, but it's like, okay, I don't know what song they did unless I really know their style and it stands out. Yeah. I don't, you know what I mean? So it takes away from that experience.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, man. Yeah, the same thing goes for movie scores. A lot of movies these days, they don't have a score. Instead, they have a bunch of popular music. I hate that shit with a passion. Or like they establish an awesome theme in one film, and then in the sequel, they get a whole new composer. And he does a whole different theme instead of just continuing the themes and the leitmotifs from the previous film. Man, we're gonna do another one. We're gonna talk about this. We have
the fact that you even brought up the movie score thing. I swear I was about to talk for another hour, bro.
Yeah, we got to do it. We definitely got to do it. So, yeah, everybody pay attention because we're gonna do that again. But yeah, man. Yo, yeah, this was dope. I'm glad we finally sat down and did this. So
yeah, for same here, man.
For sure, we're gonna do another one, and probably it's gonna be music, based because my half of my family is more on the musical side, the other half is more on the technical side. They're always in the sciences and stuff. Music for me, I can't create without music. I always am listening to something, and it has to fit the mood of the thing that I'm working on. And so I've got music in languages I don't speak, but I know the groove sounds good, the instruments sounds good, everything. It's just I need that. So like I've become really hardcore when it comes to the music that accompanies the things that I'm involved with. And I don't even like a long time ago I stopped listening to the radio and I started listening to like older stuff that I didn't like. I knew the songs, but I didn't know the artists. So I started trying to learn who all these cats were, listening to stuff from, the Motown era, from disco era, from like early electronic music and stuff, back when they played instruments and shit. And man, it was blowing my mind all the things that were being done back in the day before you had all these programs to do it. And I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like now that I know, I can appreciate a lot of different stuff. Shit, there was a period I was listening to Swedish black metal. It sounds like imagine like the Lord of the Rings score with heavy percussion and like guitars. Like it's that kind of shit. Like it sounds so epic. It's like wow. But I just be going like, all over.
Like music just catches me, man. Like I know my wife get annoyed. She laughs about it. But we'll be watching a movie, dude, and if I catch something, I'm like, we gotta rewind that part because did you hear that? Like, we gotta rewind that, man. And then now Shazam has been updated to where even if there's dialogue, you can still catch the thing, and it'll tell. Man, I can hold my phone up to the speaker. I'm like, what was that?
We did it the other day. We did the other day with
like
stuff
just
off of Instagram. Somebody played like this
Yeah.
5-second reel, and I was like, "Yo, what was that song?" My wife does it all the time. What is that song? And then I find the song, send it to her, and then
Yeah.
she's bumping it in the car the next day. Like we get
like,
nuts with that stuff.
Yeah, dude, like all the time, man. Like music just catches me. I could be doing something where I'm focusing on something else, but if something is playing in the back, like my wife will, she'll be on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And she'll go to a video, and she knows me so well. She'll play it on purpose again and Shazam it for me. She was like, "I knew you was gonna like that," because I'll stop dead in my tracks at whatever I was doing. I'll stop and be like, before I could even get the words out, she's like, "You want me to Shazam it?" I said, "Yes." What is that? And then too, like, when you work on music, you listen to music differently.
Oh yeah.
Like you kind of. And I think it even goes the same for people who just love music, period. I don't even know if you necessarily have to work on music, but just if you love music, you start to pick it apart in a good way. You start to hear like, oh, okay, I didn't pick up on that when I heard that the first time.
Yeah.
So then you listen to it again, and you're finding like all of these little things that they kind of put in there, and it's like, yo.
Yeah, listening to I went through a phase of listening to the backup singers on like some of my favorite older tracks. And like I was doing that kind of thing with like electronic music for a long time was my favorite genre. But I would listen to the layers of the song, you know, different layers, the bass, the highs, the everything else, and just like kind of start isolating shit. Like I didn't physically isolate it, but when I'm listening to that specific part.
Yeah, and, that specific thing,
And it's just funny because you start appreciating all of it. You know what I mean? Not just a little bit of it. Yeah. This is gonna be fun to do as a straight up standalone topic. We gotta definitely do it.
Yep. Yeah, I can't wait for that, man. Yeah, like I said, dude, when it come to music, like I swear, like even at work, we can talk about music until from when we clock in to break time. Like I can talk about this all day because I love all kind of music, man.
Same.
I do. There's been real quick. There's been reviews that you've done where you're playing like this epic kind of like action score in the background.
Yeah.
And I remember after watching, you recently played it in one of your recent videos because it was in an older one before. And after I initially watched the review, I listened back and kept going back to that moment in the video where that was playing. I was like, I don't know where he got this from, but it's dope.
Yeah, I mean, let me know which video it is. I can hip you to where I got it from. Because some of it is from I have a subscription to a library that when I was sponsored way back, I want to say like five or 6 years ago, I was sponsored by Broadband TV. I think that's what they were called. And I had access to this. They paid for the library. So then when they stopped sponsoring smaller channels, then I had to pay for it myself. It's only like $10 a month, something like that. But the library is pretty nice, and some of the guys, the stuff they have on there is pretty dope. And they've also gotten better over the years because it's the same bunch of people. You know, it's people just like you and me that just happen to be really into music and like, epic sounding music, electronic music, funky type, old school stuff. And like, they just essentially that's how they make their money is they provide that shit for the library. And some of it is really good. Like I listen to it when I'm not making a video. I'm just listening to it just because. So man, let me know and I'll direct you to where you can find it too.
All right, that's what's up.
Cool. Well, we're gonna call it quits right here. But man, this was dope, man. This was fun. I'm really glad we got to do this. And like, I'm probably gonna. We already chat as it is, just because. But no, I'm glad. It's good to have a little bit higher level kind of discussion about this stuff rather than just the usual topical shit that most people do. Right. So I really appreciate you being free to do this, and we are definitely gonna do it again.
Yeah man, definitely.
All right, well, that is it for us, you guys. You've been great, and peace outside.